This is the Patriots Catch-22 podcast with Evan Lazar and Alex Barth.
I'm Evan Lazar. Evan Lazar.
Hello, everybody.
Nailed it. Joined as always by our Barth. That's a fit. That's a match.
No risk it, no biscuit.
22.
Here is Evan Lazar and Alex Barth.
Because I can't quit.
Yeah.
My Tez Johnson love. He tested exactly the same as Tank Dell.
But he didn't.
He did.
He didn't.
He did.
He did not.
Why
I gotta
not?
pull the Tez Johnson numbers because he didn't.
He did. He ran a 4.51. Tank Dell ran a 4.49.
That's different.
Oh
Tank
my God.
Dell.
We're
Tank
talking
Dell.
about 200ths of a
Yes,
second.
that's what the combine is.
Oh my
That's
God.
absolutely.
That's
Tank Dell.
crazy.
Tank Dell's
Stop
also.
it.
Tank Dell's also 12 pounds heavier.
He was heavier.
Tez Johnson, they showed it.
He was on my downs list. You don't have to rant.
Was the
He's on my downs
second
list. He had a bad
lightest
week.
player in the history of the combine.
It was not good.
22.
It was not good. But you know what was good? It was a good couple days for the Patriots.
It was a good couple of days.
I have a little pep in my step today, and I thought it was a really solid start. I'm not going to come in here and blow too much smoke and say that it was like this unbelievable A+ first day of free agency, but I would call it a really solid start. I'm pleased with what the Patriots have done so far, and I'm excited about it. So we're going to talk about it here today. Alex Barth, Evan Lazar, Patriots Catch-22 for the next couple of hours, and I want to go player by player and give our takes on each individual player, but I obviously want to start big picture first and talk about our overall thoughts of really what's been one day, because they haven't really done much. I think there's some things that are balls up in the air that maybe they're waiting to see where they fall to start a second wave here. Cooper Kupp. We'll get to that in a little
Cam
bit.
Robinson.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a little bit.
During
But
the show, it'd be great if they're listening upstairs. You want
right.
to give us something to react to
Yes.
during the show. Appreciate
now.
that.
the next 2 hours, we'll
Yeah, sooner the better.
and we'll keep Morel here a little bit longer if it happens, late, or we'll keep it going. Anyways, I think my big picture thought on the free agency so far, and I feel like everybody that's commenting on this so far is putting in the caveat of they still need the wide receiver and they still need the left tackle, and I think we're all aware of that. But I look at what they've done on defense and think two things. One, I'm really glad that they didn't ignore how just bad, I'm just trying to find the right word, wasn't good on defense last year.
Sure.
And anybody that thought it was just an offensive-minded free agency or offseason, that all they needed to do was add on offense, I don't think that was really looking at it objectively of just how much that defense fell apart, especially up front and in the middle, right? Just right down the spine of the defense. When you talk about interior defensive line play, linebacker play, safety play, it just wasn't good enough on any level last year. At times, we came in here every single week and did 3 up, 3 down. And how many times did I just lament about the linebacker play last year and just how those linebackers, once Bentley went out, just didn't make any plays at the second level of the defense, didn't get off blocks, didn't make tackles, just didn't make any plays. So you add a game-wrecking 3 technique with Milton Williams. You add an edge defender that's stout and plays their style of football, can get up the field a little bit, in Harold Landry. And my guy, Robert Spillane, is one of my favorite signings of this whole class because that is a tackling machine. Like, this guy is always around the ball. He's always going to make tackles. He's always going to do that. And Carlton Davis out on the perimeter kind of shores up that cornerback room, puts everybody where they're supposed to be at the cornerback spot. So my big picture takeaway is that I'm someone, and I'm going to give credit to all 3. The big 3 is what I like to call them. Vrabel, Cowden, Wolf looked at that defensive side of the ball and, in my mind, understood the flaws and understood where they needed to address the roster on that side of the football.
Yeah.
So they made calculated moves. They made moves for guys that fit. They make moves for guys that play a certain way. And that is encouraging because I feel like someone is looking at this like a football guy and recognizing that these were our holes on defense. This is how we fix it. Let's go out and execute a plan to do so on the first day of free agency. So long way to go on the offensive side of the ball, but that's encouraging that we are not just throwing money at big names or, we're going to sign the top 3 defensive free agents because that's what we need. No, they made some really nice calculated moves to upgrade this defense.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. They didn't address the 2 biggest needs, but I think they've done a good job of checking off so far the majority of the other boxes. Left tackle and wide receiver are still the big ones. The other one I'd put out there is guard and then safety. But, people are going to compare it to 2021. 2021, maybe there was more overall talent, but that was more of just a blunt approach of we're just going to go out and sign player after player after player. And, how much consideration was there of fit? Some guys worked, some guys didn't. To your point, I think every guy they signed, it's a very targeted, like, you can project a role instantly for every single one of these guys. We kind of wondered, where's Jonnu Smith going to fit? How's he going to play? Jalen Mills, is he going to play corners? Is he going to play safety? And, you can have a couple guys that you maybe want to experiment with. That's fine. But early on, they needed a guy, best case scenario, wrecking tandem in the middle. Worst case scenario, if they don't have Barmore, they have that guy who can penetrate from the inside, which they need to play the style of defense. They got a guy who plays their style on the edge. They got a bigger physical man corner on the outside. I know we talked about zone last week. I think we maybe need to rehab that conversation.
Sure.
They needed a guy who could play sideline to sideline at the linebacker position. Got that. Got one of the tackles they needed. Like all 5 or 6 just instant boom spot 'em starters. Even Khyiris Tonga, who's not the biggest name and who knows how much he'll play, but after trading Devon Godchaux, they needed a guy who's just going to sit. You can put on the field on 2nd and 1 or 3rd and 1, sit him down in the middle and have him stop the run, and boom, he plugs right into that role. So I think it was a very disciplined approach. Mike Vrabel, I think it was Vrabel or Wolf, one of them said at the Combine, we're not going to sign players just to sign players, right?
Yeah.
They talked about getting aggressive but not being reckless. I thought they walked that line perfectly, and when they were maybe going to lose out on Milton Williams just based on how the reporting went, they kind of went back in, and you saw that aggressiveness turn up, but they didn't go all out on players that they didn't need to go all out on.
Yeah, I agreed. And you mentioned Carlton Davis and maybe talking a little bit more about them still playing a lot of man-to-man coverage, which I agree with. But I also just look at Carlton Davis and how long have we been saying, Jonathan Jones, Marcus Jones, Miles Bryant when he was here, good players, but just not outside corners, right?
Yeah.
Like they need to be playing the slot. They don't have the size. They don't have that ability to go up against, those outside guys. They get a guy like Carlton Davis in here. And again, it's not just the player. It's also the skill set of the player. He's 6'1", he's 200 pounds. He has incredible length and wingspan. I think he's 95th percentile in the wingspan when he came out of the draft. So you have a body type now that projects to fit well on the outside opposite of Christian Gonzalez. So again, they recognized we have slot corners playing outside. And those guys are competitive, and those guys are feisty cover corners. So they've held their own to their credit. But this obviously isn't how it should be. Like, we're playing these guys out of position. And so you go out there and you sign Carlton Davis, and now Marcus Jones projects as a slot. Maybe you do bring Jonathan Jones back here still on a reasonable contract and play him at nickel or safety or something like that in the middle of the field. And everybody just back there kind of starts to fit where they're supposed to be. So that was it was encouraging that they were able to identify their holes on defense and go out and sign guys that fill those holes. Harold Landry, left defensive end. Milton Williams, 3 technique. Carlton Davis, number 2 corner. Spillane, I think they're going to try to play Spillane and Bentley next to each other on early downs. I don't know for a fact if that's going to be the case, but if I had to guess, I would say that the plan would be to play both those guys on the field together, not Spillane replacing Bentley, but Bentley and Spillane as a duo. So we'll see how that all works out. You mentioned, Morgan Moses, and I think it's similar. Morgan Moses is going to be your right tackle next year.
Yep.
Like, you have that spot filled at least for the 2025 season. And, there's a long way to go on that offensive line. It's probably the biggest concern I have right now still. I think they're down, let's call it 2 starters at least. And then there's obviously a decent amount of, stuff out there about what's going to happen at center, what's not going to happen at center. So we'll see what transpires there. But you're at least 2 spots still to fill at left guard and left tackle. So we can get to that here in a minute as well. And we'll take your phone calls, 855-PATS-500. And you can reach out on email too at podcast@patriots.com if you'd like to do that as well. But I want to go through all these free agents the additions by just go one by one as we tend to do on this show and get really into it. So let's go in order of just sort of, when they were signed, if you will,
Okay.
A little bit here. So obviously the first one is Harold Landry on Sunday night, as we're all on our couches, probably not thinking that anything is going to happen until the morning. They signed Harold Landry to a 3-year deal, and this one's obvious. Big connections with Vrabel. Goes back a ways. Vrabel draft pick, his very first draft in Tennessee.
Yep,
was second round pick for the Titans.
After Rashawn Evans was their first round pick that year, right?
Sounds right.
Yeah.
He doesn't. Harold Landry's, his pass rush win rate, I know that's a number that's going around a lot from PFF. PFF is pretty harsh on it. It sounds like ESPN's is a little bit nicer, but neither one of them are glowing about his season last year in terms of pass rush productivity. You hope that maybe that was scheme related. He was in a different scheme for the first time in his career. Now that he goes back to playing with Vrabel and Terrell Williams, maybe he goes back to being a productive player in the pass rush. But I think the number one thing that stands out to me with Harold Landry is the run defense is really solid. Really good run defender, but a different style, not an Anthony Jennings style. I wouldn't say he's a guy that can get up the field, that can shoot gaps and really set the edge by getting downhill at the line of scrimmage and use that burst and that bend that he has to make plays in the backfield. And I would also say in the pass rush, if you're counting on the fact that you're going to get a lot of interior pressure up the middle, then he's someone that I do think can kind of clean up. Like, I don't know if he's necessarily at this stage of his career going to be a one-on-one winner that's going to get sacks all on his own. But if Milton Williams is pushing the quarterback towards Harold Landry's side of the line of scrimmage, I think that he can be the guy that gets the quarterback actually on the ground.
Yeah, good complementary rusher, good secondary rusher, and they needed that. Now you may say, well, okay, who's the primary? That's what we still need to wait and see, and maybe that guy comes in the draft. Maybe that guy comes next year. We all knew they weren't going to get everything in year one, but a good, solid piece in the defense. I meant to say this in the opening take, we talked a lot about the Commanders model. That's what this is. A guy that's not a superstar, but he's going to give you kind of a floor, and he will help just kind of shore up that defensive front. And just raise the level by being steady and consistent.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I wanted to pull up, and we can do it in a second, the Commanders' free agency last season. Now, the Commanders didn't go out and make a Milton Williams signing at the top of the market. But a lot of these guys, the Landrys, the Davises, these mid-level to let's call it mid-level to maybe, 3/4 level if you want. Free agents were a lot of what the Commanders did. They signed a lot of those types of guys. I think that does it with Landry. I think we kind of got that covered. Milton Williams is obviously the big piece. Just get right to him. I think the with this defense and with this scheme and what they're going to try to do with Vrabel and be more aggressive. He's used that word multiple times to describe how they want to play defense, especially on the defensive line. Aggressive, play on the other side of the line of scrimmage. The 3 technique, or the player that lines up over the outside shade of the guard, is Jeffrey Simmons in Tennessee. It's a massive, massive role to fit this whole puzzle together. A game wrecker that can defeat blocks in the run game and make splash plays in the run game and get after the passer. If you're going to run this kind of system, you need that interior penetration. You need those guys that can do that. So I can totally understand, and I expressed some of my doubts or just concerns about Milton Williams before free agency, because when you play on that defensive line in Philadelphia next to Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, Josh Sweat, Jordan Davis, you do worry about if it's going to continue when those guys aren't around you, right? And you don't have Jalen Carter, especially on the interior, and he only played 50% of the snaps last year in Philly. When you pay a guy this kind of money, he's going to play a lot more here than that. But with that being said, the role in the defense that he's going to play is extremely important in this system, and he can play it. He definitely has a tape that he can play it at a high level, and they clearly made this a non-negotiable. Like, we have to walk out of free agency with Milton Williams, and I think a lot of that goes back to the type of defense they want to play.
Well, and I think ideally you have two of those guys.
Yeah.
Right, and him and Christian Barmore, and that's going to be among the best defensive tackle duos in the National Football League.
Yeah.
We'll see where they're at with Barmore. It kind of sounds like nothing definitive has been made of that yet, and they don't need to make a definitive decision right now, right? So it's not surprising, but if you get those two guys going in the middle, then with Landry coming off the edge, and you maybe throw a day 2 draft pick in there, completely reworked front, night and day from where they were at last year.
It's extremely athletic too. Just I know that some of those guys are a little bit older, like Landry, so maybe this doesn't quite apply. But if you go back to look at all these guys in the combine, they're all elite athletic testers out of the combine. Landry, Milton Williams. We should mention Keon White, another guy that was
in the mix here.
A high-end athlete. Barmore, high-end athlete. So all of a sudden, a front that was typically space-eating, run stuffers like Devon Godshaw's of the world. Now all of a sudden it's got a bunch of athletes that get up the field. So you can see the vision of what they're trying to build in that respect as well. Look at Milton Williams. I see a lot of the same style of pass rush moves when we talked so much about Mason Graham in the draft. Very violent with his hands, likes to use a swipe, likes to use an arm over to complement that. He can bull rush. I don't think it's his number one go-to, but he can do it if you want him to try to push the pocket up the middle. And then at 290, his quickness in the run game really stands out. He's got that ability to just cross over and get on the edges quickly and get into gaps quickly. And guys on the offensive line just don't get over there quick enough to overtake those blocks. So that's all over his tape. Fantastic playoff run for Philadelphia last year as well. So this is a guy that performed well in the biggest moments for the Eagles last year. So a lot of pros about the player. I just, I'll keep on saying it. I hope that it's not a product of Jalen Carter. We'll see.
Well,
but a lot of pros.
That's going to be the big question. He only played about 50% of snaps in Philly, right? So he's going to be playing a bigger role here. How does he adjust to that? And that's why, look, Christian Barmore is not Jalen Carter, but again, you get the two of them together. Sure. And that's going to be something I think that could be really special. Yeah,
and I do wonder too if Keon White is in more of a rotational role and he's kind of like a third down interior pass rusher type of guy, and maybe he even goes in terms of snap count and stuff like that, and even where he's rushing into what Milton Williams was last year for Philadelphia, right? Someone that is only playing 55% of the snaps, but is really effective rushing the passer. So if it's not Barmore that's eating, when Milton Williams gets double teamed, or Williams eating when Barmore gets double teamed, maybe that's Keon White next year is the guy that's getting all the one-on-ones with Milton Williams in the middle. Carlton Davis. I know this is your favorite signing of the bunch. You've been a big Carlton Davis guy for a long time.
I've been telling you that he made sense. Yeah. They needed size on the boundary. They needed physicality on the boundary. And I'm not going to lie. When you said, and I don't think you're necessarily wrong in the point you were making, but when you said that it felt like maybe they were going to go a little more zone heavy on defense, I was kind of disappointed.
Yeah.
I just think that, look, I think if everybody could play man all the time, they would. I think man's better, but it's also a lot harder to execute, and that's why teams don't do it as much. But if you can play man heavy with your corners, I think there's a massive advantage in being able to do that. And they now have two solid, that's one of the better cornerback duos in the league. Two really good man corners on the outside, guys that you can kind of pick and choose your matchups. Gonzalez is a little more athletic, a little more agile, a little more crafty. Davis can do that stuff, but I would categorize him as more of a bully. And the other thing is, and let's not lose sight of this, everybody talks about, all right, well, Milton Williams, Harold Landry, Khyiris Tonga, Robert Spillane, they worked on the front. They worked on the rush. Carlton Davis, I would put him in that category too, because in theory, if you have Gonzalez and Davis on the outside, you should be picking up more coverage sacks now.
Yeah.
Right? Those two guys are Davis with Gonzalez. Adding Davis to Gonzalez helps the pass rush as well. So I just think not just a good player It's not so much I think Carlton Davis is an unbelievable player. I think he's a really solid player. But what he does, what his skill sets are, what he brings, also a guy that has won at a high level, won a chip with the Bucs, made a run last year with the Lions, kind of running out of those guys. They only have 5 guys left here who won a Super Bowl here, and we haven't had to think about this in New England for a long time, but this is what the other 31 franchises had to do for years. You kind of want to have a guy or two in the room who's won a Super Bowl just to kind of give that experience. Obviously, they still have a few left, but Carlton Davis, the guy, he's won at a high level. He plays physically. He plays on the outside. He gives them size. He gives them physicality. The way he fits, right? The way he fits what they need, to me, makes a good player a great signing, because he's going to make – it's going to help Christian Gonzalez. It's going to help the pass rush. Like, he just kind of elevates what they already had in place.
Yeah, physical corner, press man corner.
Yeah.
Really good at the line of scrimmage. You know, he has great length and physicality to just smother releases and press man and make receivers work through contact and all that good stuff. First and second level routes are really tough against him. He's really good at those, especially in breakers. You know, if you're going to run a slant, you're going to run a dig, you're going to have to finish through some contact and make some contested catches against a guy like Carlton Davis. His one, other than durability over the years, has been up and down. He doesn't have great long speed, so he can get beat deep sometimes. But when you have Christian Gonzalez on the other side, like, maybe the safety help goes to Carlton Davis a little bit more often.
And this is where I'd like to see them add that true free safety on the back end, because if you can allow both Gonzalez and Davis to play more aggressive in the shorter intermediate, you're going to turn 2 guys who are primarily lockdown corners maybe into kind of ball hawks.
Yeah, so I watched a couple games of Davis's, but I watched him against Christian Watson with the Packers because I wanted to see him against a real speed receiver. It's a tough matchup for a guy like him, and he did really, really well outside of 2 plays, but those 2 plays went for like 60 yards apiece because he does sometimes lose some of those foot races down the field. You know, Watson ran by him on a go ball on one, and then a crossing route where he got caught up in some traffic. I'll give him that. But, just going across the field, those types of foot races can be a little bit tough, especially if he's playing off coverage and not playing up on the line of scrimmage where he can get his hands on guys. The go ball was like soft press, so he wasn't really jamming. He was just kind of mirroring, and Watson ran by him. So if you manage his matchups, though, and you put him against, the bigger bodied guys, or you put him against the guys that aren't quite as dynamic down the field, and Gonzalez, who's just, can run with anybody, runs with Tyreek Hill, so he can run with anybody. He covers the true speed guy, then you're in good shape. And it's not exactly the same, but it kind of reminds me of Revis and Browner, where like Revis was, this guy that could cover anybody he wanted. And I think Christian Gonzalez is that type of dude. And Browner was just that physical, jam him at the line type of player. And as long as you kept Browner in the right matchups, he was really, really effective. And I think the same thing is going to be true with Carlton Davis. So I love it. I love the size on the outside. I love the physicality he brings, the edge that he brings. This is what they've been missing for multiple years now at that second cornerback spot. Gonzo's rookie year, really going back to 2022. I would say they've been playing Miles Bryant, Marcus Jones, Jonathan Jones out on the boundary out of necessity. So they have a guy now in Carlton Davis that belongs out there, that belongs playing in that spot. So that's exciting.
And when they face some of these faster teams, like we'll see what happens with Jonathan Jones. You could still mix. Maybe that's a game where Carlton Davis plays a little less. Jonathan Jones plays a little more. They get another speedier corner on the outside as kind of an alternate to Carlton Davis. Like they didn't need a lot of corners. They just needed one guy to slot everybody in correctly. Bring Jonathan Jones back or some other speedier, backup slot corner. And now you're in good shape, and you have a ton of options with how you want to pick your matchups.
Right, like they have Marcus Jones under contract, and I let's call it for what it is. We're really talking about Miami, right? And like when you go up against Miami and you have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, we know Gonzalez can stay with Tyreek Hill, so he's probably going to cover Hill. Does Marcus Jones cover Jalen Waddle in that matchup instead of Carlton Davis? I love the idea potentially of Carlton Davis then playing more of like a nickel role in that kind of game.
Yeah.
And having some size inside. When they go 12 personnel, they go heavy.
And that's another thing about Davis. He's really good against the run.
Yeah, you can play him against the run. He can play tight ends. like potentially like receiving tight ends. Like I think that he has the size and the ability to guard those types of players too inside. So maybe in those types of matchups, they move him around a little bit to get him off of those speedy receivers. I think that could really be huge for them if that's what they're able to do and those types of things. All right, Robert Spillane, probably my favorite signing. I know it sounds that's weird for me to be that into an inside linebacker, but the linebacker play on this team last year just drove me bananas. Like I just would pull my hair out every single Monday watching the film back of their linebacker play last year. And Spillane is one of those guys that just is all over the ball all the time. I mean, he had 156 tackles last year, and I know tackles, some people don't like the stat anymore, but you don't make 150 tackles by accident, right? Like if you're around the ball that much, good things are happening when you're out there. Really underrated run defender. He's sneaky good in zone coverage. Like he's kind of got like a nose for the football. He has 5 picks over the last 2 years, mostly in zone coverage.
I think he had 7-9 pass breakups last year.
Yeah,
something like that.
I wouldn't put him in man to man against like tough assignments. Like if you have a pass catching running back or dynamic tight ends and things like that, I wouldn't necessarily say that he's smooth enough in terms of that in coverage. But he's got a really good knack over the middle of the field for those short zone drops, just kind of feeling out those routes and being able to jump routes from those underneath spots. He's 230 pounds, so he's a little bit more undersized, a little bit faster, a little bit more sideline to sideline to him than what they've had in the past. But most of all, I just think he plays like a maniac. Like I think he plays with his hair on fire. He plays physical. He plays through blocks, and that's something that they just didn't have last year.
Old school mentality, modern linebacker skill set. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like he's I'm sure he's a very nice guy, but on the field, mean, plays nasty, flies around, always near the football, doesn't miss a chance to deliver a big hit. But he can move. He can get sideline to sideline. He can explode in the backfield when he needs. And the other thing is, like, a lot of these linebackers, so the initial report was that the Patriots were in on Jamie and Sherwood.
Yeah.
Jamie Sherwood's 216 pounds.
Yeah.
And that worried me a little bit. And I don't, like, Sherwood's 25, Spillane's 29, so there's something to be said for upside and all that. But Spillane's 6'1", 229, like, he's not small. He's not big. He's not the 260-pound linebacker we're used to seeing here, like Juwan Bentley.
Sure.
But he still has some size to him, and he can still handle some of those old-school linebacker roles. So I don't know. Looking back on it, like, did they almost end up better off with Sherwood going back to the Jets and ending up with Spillane?
They definitely ended up with a more physical player in Spillane, and I also think that, he's one of those guys that plays with energy and plays with like a joy to him a little bit, that not saying that Sherwood doesn't play with energy, but I don't know if like Spillane is going to be one. I'm telling you, he's going to be one of those guys that is going to get this place going a little bit. Like I think that he's going to make some plays and he's going to get up out off the pile and be screaming and stuff like that. He just has like an edge to him.
This is so unlike you. They don't show that on the All 22.
Do you know how bad the defense in the middle of the field was last year? I couldn't do it.
They don't. This is what I always say. When you watch the All 22, you lose the stuff in between the whistles. You lose penalties.
No,
you lose like body language, emotion. But there's not a lot of it on there.
You know what it was? And
and don't get me wrong. I like that you have this tape.
Yeah,
it's just not very likely.
I like the player. I mentioned this yesterday on Unfiltered, but last year, you know me, I'll find myself on a Monday night, Tuesday night, when I'm doing all my film stuff. For some reason, I'm watching the Raiders defense. Like, no one knows why. Like, why did I end up here? I couldn't tell you. But, there's cross tape or whatever, and, like, they're playing an offense that played the Raiders, and I'm just ending up here, okay? So I'm ending up here on the Raiders defense. And every time you turned on the film with the Raiders defense, even over the last 2 years, I would say, this Spillane guy just keeps flashing. Like, he keeps making plays.
He just shows up. That's what he does.
He's always around the ball. And he's sort of like the film junkies, like the guys on Twitter that are always posting clips and stuff like that, we all kind of just love Spillane. Like, I don't know what it is. It just is one of those guys that is underrated, and I said it off the top of the show that it feels like somebody's paying attention again, which is nice. I feel like somebody's watching the tape, right? We're not just going out there and, oh, I heard of that guy, right? Like, we're actually going out and watching film and understanding who these players are, and Spillane is one of those guys to me that shows that someone did some homework. Like, this is a good poll. Like, this is some Zach Bond's a free agent, so we're just gonna give Zach Bond a bag.
Spillane's
right?
been underrated. I came into the league as a UDFA, played 2 games for the Titans, went to Pittsburgh, started off as like a primary special teamer, worked his way into a rotational role. He started all 17 games the last 2 years for the Raiders. Like, this is a guy that built his way up quietly.
Yep, absolutely. All right. That was the defense. That was the defense. We want to talk about Tonga?
Khyiris Tonga.
So Tonga's a space eater, right? Like, Tonga is a space-eating nose tackle. And
so just when you're worried, I think you had texted me this.
Yeah.
That, like, these are good signings, right? They're bringing in good players. Nothing wrong with that. But, like, are they getting a little too small on defense?
They were one big boy short on the defensive line.
6'4", 338-pound Khyiris Tonga shows up.
Yeah, every once in a while I got a feel for the league, every once in a while.
Oh, so you knew when you texted me that?
No, I didn't say that.
Right.
I did.
Okay.
Because
it was like 5 minutes before they signed it that you texted me that.
So Tonga, like you said, space eater, big dude, gonna clog rushing lanes, great short yardage player. What I really like about the Tonga signing, though, and this is where my nerdum comes in, like, they moved Devon Godshaw, who was a good player, but probably overpriced for what the role is that he was going to play, especially in this defense, and they get a significantly better value in Tonga, and he's probably going to play the same snaps that Devon Godshaw was going to play. So is it maybe a little bit worse of a player? I guess you could make that case, but now they have Milton Williams. Now they have Harold Landry, and this is just from a math standpoint or a financial standpoint. Like, to me, this is a shrewd move. Like, you trim salary with Devon Godshaw, but you still have a Devon Godshaw type player in Tonga.
Yeah, because he's just... What Godshaw played? Godshaw played over 50% last year, right?
He played a lot.
55, 60%. This is a guy probably 30% of the plays.
Right.
He's just going to be on the field when they need to stop the run. That's it. You didn't need to pay that guy. They opened up this year. It's minimal, but next year $8 million in cap. You didn't need to be paying that for what that role is going to be. And Tonga's a good player. He's going to take up space, and that's what they needed.
They needed another big body. I want to get to what we still think they need, so I don't want to keep on.
I know, but we were going to end up leaving off one guy that. No,
that's fine. I just meant, like, I have a couple more they still needs on defense, but we'll get to that in a second. I want to do that separately. All right, offensively. Morgan Moses, who is like aging like fine wine. Like, he's an ageless wonder.
He had one of his best years of his career last year at age 33.
Yeah, he plays, for the most part, he plays every game for like 11 straight years.
Yeah.
It's pretty incredible, the durability. This was exactly what we were talking about on the offensive line going into free agency. Just give me somebody that is an NFL player at the position, right? And we were talking more about tackle, but I think you mentioned guard, and I've been big on that a left guard as a potential hole here. But in terms of right tackle, just give me somebody who is an NFL player at that position, not someone that is off the scrap heap or off someone else's practice squad. An NFL player, and that's exactly what Morgan Moses is. He's a people mover in the run game, really, really physical blocker. I think him next to Mike Onwenu is a great run blocking right side of your offensive line. Those guys on double teams and gap schemes and things, they're going to move some people on that side of the line of scrimmage, which is good. I think that's what Josh McDaniels wants. I think that's what his offense wants. I always go back to his ideal right side of Marcus Cannon and Shaq Mason. Like, you just want two bulldozers over there that can really move the line of scrimmage. I think they have that again, and I watched Moses against Chop Robinson, because that was the one thing I had concern, kind of like with Davis with speed, just on the other side. I was worried about the twitched up guys. Like, are those speed rushers like a Chop Robinson at 34 years old? Is he still meeting them, at the junction point of the rush? And is he still able to protect his edge against Chop Robinson? And Chop Robinson got him a few times, but I thought that he did pretty well and held up pretty well. Really good, out of his stance still. I think he gains plenty of ground there. still blocks inside out. So you're not seeing a lot of like really quick losses on his tape. And that's encouraging. You're not going to get those like blow bys where it's just no contest. So I don't think he's the most fleet of foot at this point. He's not a great lateral, redirect athlete. So he's going to have some issues with those types of guys sometimes. But again, he's not going to get blown by. Consistently, at least.
Professional player.
Yeah.
Professional, solid player. A little bit older. I doubt he plays the whole 3 years of the contract, but they just needed somebody to get them to level at one of those tackle spots, and he'll do that.
Yeah.
It's not a position we're not going to, at least one spot we know, we're not going to have to go into camp, one tackle spot that we know we're not going to have to go into camp and be like, all right, well, this guy's the favorite, but this guy could win the job. No. It's Morgan Moses. If Morgan Moses is losing that spot, something probably went unexpectedly wrong, right?
Yeah.
That's his job. Solid player. Gives them another year to develop Caden Wallace if they want, although maybe they end up moving him to guard or something like that, but gives them some flexibility there. Locks Mike Onwenu into right guard for the first time in his NFL career.
Yeah.
Mike Onwenu can spend the entire offseason, preseason just focusing on one position, right? Should spend the entire offseason, preseason focusing on one position. You talked a lot about pass pro there. I think you're going to have a lot of fun running off that right side between Onwenu and Morgan Moses. I think there's a lot of potential there. Solid signing. Not, nobody's doing cartwheels or anything, but like box checked for sure. That box is checked. Good right tackle for this year, not a question.
Yeah, how relieving is that to have a tackle spot, to not have to go into the camp and, well, it could, they drafted Wallace in the 3rd round, and they have this veteran that's Riley Reef over the hill.
We'll see who gets waived. Not at right tackle. We'll see about left.
Yeah.
Not doing that at right tackle.
The last thing on Moses that I really like, I was talking to Brandon Thorne, who's kind of my O-line guy that I like to pick his brain a lot about this kind of stuff. And he did point out that really good in the room, like a really good leader. He's going to take these guys that they draft. They draft a rookie left tackle, Caden Wallace in his 2nd season, Layden Robinson in his 2nd season. He's going to take these guys under his wing. He's going to show them the ropes. He's going to teach them how to be professionals. Yeah. And I think that that's important. I think that's a good part of that as well. Good culture guy, experienced, steady. Brandon every year does O-line rankings, and he had everybody in tiers, and Moses was in his average NFL starter tier, which I think is exactly what he is. He's a steady, reliable, average right tackle in the league, which is so much better than what they had last year. So we're improving there in that spot as well. And, we'll get to the rest of the line here in a second, which is still a big question mark and a big concern. Mac Hollins.
Yes.
This one is, I'm okay with it. I know it's not what everybody wants out of wide receiver. I know that a lot of people, I posted some clips of him on Twitter, and everybody was like, don't try to convince us that this guy's a wide receiver 1. No one's trying to convince you that Mac Hollins is the cure to all their ills at the wide receiver position. But similar to what we were just talking about with Moses, this is a professional receiver that goes about things the right way from everything that everybody has talked about. And in terms of that side of it, how much of a mess that receiver room was last year on and off the field. This is a guy you're not going to have to worry about in terms of the off-field locker room stuff. And I actually think that he's got some sneaky juice. Like, it's not great. Like, no one's trying to convince you that Mac Hollins is the answer. But some of the stuff that I saw on film, I took me by surprise a little bit. Like, he's got a little bit of speed and some juice off the line of scrimmage, really good accelerator off the line, and he's got some wiggle against press. He's got size, in the red zone. He's 6'4", caught 5 touchdowns last year for Buffalo. So I do think that he is a guy that can be used in the red zone as that type of player, especially if he's going to run routes out of that like big slot role, right? Put him inside, almost like a tight end, and have him run seams and in cuts and stuff like that down by the goal line. He's got a nice catch radius and size to him. Plays on special teams. He's going to be a 4-down player for you. Had really good production with Josh McDaniels. Solid depth.
Yeah, solid, unspectacular. I saw a lot of people felt strongly about this one way or the other, and I couldn't find it either way. Like, he definitely checked some boxes they needed checked. 6'4", 221, gives you size in that room. He is probably, is it safe to say, he's the only true X on the roster? I know they played Kayshon Boutte out there, but that's because they didn't have anybody else, right?
Yeah, no, he's a guy that can definitely play the X. I think he's better as a big slot, which I feel like we say that a lot.
Well, he hasn't, but he hasn't done that a lot in his career.
No, but I thought that in Buffalo last year, I thought that was his best tape was playing inside. I think that way there, his speed and his size against nickel corners or safeties is a lot harder to defend. For guys that play full time on the outside at defensive back, like when he gets into the inside part of the field, like at 6'4", he's got some girth. He's got some size to him.
I guess they need somebody to play the X. And again, either way, he brings size that they didn't have. He brings experience. He brings that veteran leadership, and he can play on special teams. They still need to do a ton at receiver. This doesn't really answer any of the talent questions, but they needed depth in that room. They needed somebody to push some of these younger guys and bring in competition for them for more rotational roles. I think he does that. But, I mean, this is not a replacement for Metcalf or Higgins or any of those guys.
No, and it'll be interesting and when we talk about what's going to happen next year. They have bodies at receiver. Yeah. I'm not saying they have any answers, and I want to keep putting that out there until somebody clips this and says, "Oh, he said that they're fine at receiver." No, they have a lot of. They need a lot more at receiver, but all of a sudden, I was texting you last night about the potential depth charts and things like that. What are you gonna do with Boutte? I'll actually even throw Kendrick Bourne in this category, right? Like Kendrick Bourne, Boutte, Polk, Baker, like those four guys. Yeah. Because you're going to have, I would think, another draft pick at wide receiver. I would think. That's going to make the roster.
Unless it's a high draft pick. Do you need one? Like what good does it do them to take another receiver in the 4th round?
Well, this is my point, right? Is like, everybody's throwing out there, sign Cooper Kupp, draft Ted McMillan, like, I'm not saying don't do those things.
Different.
But I'm not saying don't do those things. Yeah. I'm just saying that when you start to really think about it, there's the numbers there. You're going to be giving up on a young player there that you just drafted. And probably Javon Baker is probably the most likely guy. But still, like that foursome of Bourne, Polk, Boutte, Baker, if you go into the season thinking that right now Mac Hollins and Pop Douglas, I think, are on the team.
Yes.
Right? And my guess is that they're going to either sign or trade or draft one more receiver that's going to be on the team. So you're really talking about 2 or 3 spots that are left over there. Mac Hollins is already sort of your fringe wide receiver for special teams guy, right? So that spot's kind of already taken up. So you're talking about 2 more true receivers that aren't going to just be kicking game contributors, making the roster out of 4 guys. So someone between that foursome is going to be out. And maybe that's for the best. Like, I'm not saying that that's necessarily a bad thing. It's just something to consider when you start hearing, oh, they need to double dip at receiver again, or they need to sign this guy and draft that guy. Like, they're starting to get the numbers are starting to get a little crazy, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just interested to see how that all pans out. But we'll get to more of that here in a second. Let's wrap this up. Josh Dobbs is the last move here. And how are you feeling about the Manhattan Project? Because we're starting to get a little bit sweaty about this, Alex.
Well,
that your guy's not going to be here anymore.
I think it'd be
Joe Milton is who we're talking about.
Right. If they get a good return for Joe Milton, he goes somewhere he's going to have a chance to start. Like, I'd be incredibly happy for him.
Yeah.
And I think it validates what Alex Van Pelt did and what they did last year, taking him. Probably that was always the point, right? Yeah. When they drafted Joe Milton, we said, like, best case scenario, you have a couple showcase games for him in the preseason or late in the season, and he goes out, and you get back more than you drafted him. So I'd be happy for him if they're able to do that. Now, I'm not rushing that guy out the door. I think there's value in having a good backup quarterback, and his value, I think, can still go up, and maybe you get more. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. For anything less than 100, top 100 pick, I just think you're spinning your tires to what? To go ahead and draft Brady Cook in the 7th round and just start the process over. So I wouldn't. They definitely have more flexibility now because they have another backup quarterback in place if they do trade Joe Milton if somebody blows them away. That being said, I would not rule out the idea that they want to keep 3 quarterbacks.
Yeah.
It's what most teams do now. When you have that emergency quarterback rule on game days, teams want to take advantage of that. It's not like they're going to have a roster crunch. They're still kind of building this thing up. And Josh Dobbs gives you a veteran in that room. This is a guy the Patriots are his 11th NFL team.
Yeah.
Right? He's only played, 5, 6 NFL seasons, but there's a lot of experience packed in there. And he's going to be a good but good veteran voice in the room for Drake May and Joe Milton. He gives you an opportunity to have that third emergency quarterback on game days. Stylistically, he's a fit with the other 2, so you're not going to have to really have him do things differently. What better? You have 2 guys with rocket arms to have a rocket scientist teach them how to go about their game, right? So
how long have you been rehearsing that one?
I came up with it about 10 minutes after they signed him.
Yeah.
They, could they, it makes the Joe Milton trade easier. And maybe that's down the road. Maybe that's at the end of camp. Some team gets antsy. Maybe, at the time we're doing this podcast, Rodgers is still out there. Wilson's still out there. And we'll see what happens with Kirk Cousins. Then you have the draft. Maybe you get a team that, gets shaky and says, you know what? We got to give up more than we want because we got to come out of this with a quarterback. We're missing on everybody. But so maybe it gives them the flexibility if the right offer comes along. But I don't think they're going to, nor should they just rush Joe Milton out the door. What I said the other night on Twitter, don't just trade Joe Milton for the best you can get. Trade Joe Milton because somebody is giving you a reason to trade Joe Milton, right?
Yeah.
If the best offer is still not significant, you really don't need to be in a rush to trade him. And the other thing I'll add to this, just the Dobbs signing as a whole, he got 2 years, $8 million, which is solid. It's not starting money, but it's solid backup quarterback money. Sam Darnold got $100 million. You saw somebody give up a 5th-round pick for Kenny Pickett.
Yeah.
These teams are going hard into the veteran quarterback market.
Because they're terrified of the draft class.
Which might be, so glass half full, glass half empty. These teams are going hard into the veteran quarterback market, which might be a good sign for the Patriots because it means none of the teams like the quarterbacks, which means they won't go at the top of the draft. The bad news for the Patriots is all the teams winning the deals for these quarterbacks and trading for them are not the teams at the top of the draft. So do they get desperate and take somebody, or does it show you that those teams maybe feel better about the quarterbacks that are available?
So I'm with you on Joe Milton. I'm in no rush to trade Joe Milton.
No.
Now, if somebody comes in with a 2nd or 3rd round pick, I would obviously strongly consider a top 100, value, worth it, maybe. Right. But I'm in no rush to trade Joe Milton, and I look at Joe Milton the same way that I'm sure in a lot of ways Bill Belichick looked at Jimmy Garoppolo, or at the time, you're right over there. You good?
Yeah, water went down the wrong pipe. We're good.
Jacoby Brissett, at the time as well. Don't trade him until you have to trade him, right?
If you could get a Philip Dorsett equivalent, actually, that'd be great.
But just don't be in any rush. You have a affordable rookie, cost-controlled rookie contract, backup quarterback with upside. So don't be in this huge rush to trade him. Now, again, if a team blows you away with an offer that's ridiculous, a 2nd round pick comes over, across the table.
Yeah, of course you do it.
You do it, right. But I don't be in any rush. I don't buy some of the stuff out there that Joe Milton sees himself as a starter and is gonna cause issues in the room with Drake May. I don't necessarily think that that's the type of guy Joe Milton is from everything I've heard.
I think that's more an eventually thing. Eventually he'd like to go somewhere where he has a chance to start, which of course he does.
Yeah.
But I don't think it needs to be right now because like you said, that's just not the kind of guy that he is. The only team I wonder, if he sees a chance to go to the Rams and get back with Alex Van Pelt and continue on the development path he was on last year, and, Matthew Stafford, who knows how much longer he's going to be there, that might be something that's enticing.
Yeah, so last year when I wrote our feature on Joe Milton when they drafted him, and so I was talking to some people down at the Senior Bowl about him because he was down at the Senior Bowl, and that was when I first started to get on the bandwagon with you, if you remember correctly. So every year at the Senior Bowl, they hand out a good guy award, basically, just one of the players that was just above and beyond around everybody, around the meeting rooms, the locker room. Just a great guy to be around. Good, cool hang, right? Guess who won that award?
Joe Milton.
Joe Milton. So that you're telling me that guy is now going to start to try to strum up some quarterback controversy between him and Drake May? I just don't. That's not the vibe that I've gotten talking to people in Michigan, Tennessee, the Senior Bowl, all throughout that process, that he was the type of guy that was going to do that. And I think that was part of the reason why they felt comfortable double dipping and drafting him last year, because they didn't think that he was going to cause a whole hullabaloo that he should be starting. So I wouldn't be worried too much about that. But again, if somebody blows you away with an offer that you can't refuse, then you take it. But don't trade Joe Milton for a 4th round pick just to trade him, because then I think you have to draft another quarterback again, right? And so then you're just using that pick to draft another Joe Milton. So just keep Joe Milton.
And there is not another Joe Milton in this draft. There won't be another Joe Milton in the draft for a long, long time.
Yeah, he's
a unique talent.
He is. All right, let's gotta do some of these ad reads, and then we're gonna take your phone calls because I know you guys have been waiting. I know you guys have been waiting, and I also know we're coming up on another weekend without football. So why not spend the off-season getting organized with Bob's Discount Furniture? Shop Bob's and revamp every room with smart storage solutions like the bow mount bedroom set featuring built-in drawers for all your Pat's gear, or the customizable modular Bob's sectional, which now includes hidden storage consoles for all of blankets, remotes, and that football you practice throwing when no one is looking. This guy does that. So stock up on winning storage styles with Bob's Discount Furniture, the official furniture store of the New England Patriots. And Bud Light, easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Bud Light, the official beer sponsor of the New England Patriots. You are big on I'm just going to randomly have this football around, and I'm going to toss it to myself.
I do like to have a football around usually. Yes.
Just because.
Especially if I'm just like sitting on the couch watching games. I just got the ball in my hand.
Are you visioning that you're going to be playing in this?
I mean, I'm always I know I'm just always tempted during the show to go take one of those footballs off the wall and just kind of have it in my hands during the show.
Oh, our mouse is not working. Maybe Marine can pull up the calls. Mouse isn't working. You can pull up Patty. We'll just go in order.
It's not on.
I turned it on and then I turned it off and it still doesn't work. Oh, we got it. Hey, Patty,
it wasn't
you there?
On.
You there?
I'm here, guys. Can you
all right. My bad. All right,
now
go ahead,
who's better
Patty.
at the phone screener?
You definitely are.
How you guys doing today?
Good.
All right. I just want to give a couple quick shout-outs, and then I'll get to my question. Big shout-out to Chester in Portland. You know, he basically said I was an idiot for not looking more into Mac Hollins, and when I did, the guy is kind of a character, and maybe I didn't give him as much credit as he was giving him. And if you look, like in 2022, he had his best year with Josh, so maybe that's a positive going forward with him. You know, I'm not saying he's going to be Brandon LaFell or anything in that mold, but maybe we can get some good solid production for him, and I think this guy might end up being a fan favorite. And the YouTube comments, let me shout out Old Man Mob, because that guy's always on point. Now, let's get to my questions, guys. The first question is, do you think with the moves that we made with Robert Spillane, do you think Juwan Bentley still has a role in this team? Because if it comes down between him and Jelani Tavai, I actually want Tavai off this team. Like, I don't want him on here. Call me petty, but I don't like how he presented us fans last season. We're the ones that pay his salary, and sometimes football players need to get that through their head, that we're the ones that come to the games, we're the ones that buy the jerseys, we're the ones that watch the games on TV, that help this ad revenue go through and help get these guys paid. So I just want them gone. And my second question is, this is kind of crazy. Let's say something absolutely bonkers happens at the top of the draft, and Will Campbell, Abdul Carter, and Travis Hunter are all sitting there at number 4. Who do you take? Take it off the air, guys.
Thanks for the call,
I'll
Patty.
last one first. Abdul Carter, it's easy. I'm not thinking twice about it. He's the best player in the draft.
Yeah, I would take Abdul Carter, too.
Yeah.
In terms of linebacker, I don't know if there's any plans of releasing Tavai or moving on from Bentley or anything like that. I still see that Bentley and Spillane can play together.
Yeah.
I think Bentley's your Mike, Spillane's your weak side linebacker, playing, in a 4-2 in this defense. Maybe that means Tavai and Spillane are kind of in a competition for who's the best, complement to Bentley there. But I still see a role for Bentley on this team.
Bentley will still have a role. It might be reduced. I mean, he was playing 90-something% of the snaps before he got hurt last year. Like, that's going to go down to like 65, 70, I would think.
Yeah.
But he still has a role for sure. I don't know if there's a role for Jelani Tavai.
Yeah.
I just don't know, especially when you consider everything that happened last year. Are you going to keep that guy around in a backup role where he's not playing a ton, where he's probably going to get frustrated? I don't know that, like you said, is anything imminent? I don't know, but when we get around to training camp, we're talking about guys on the bubble. If he's still here at that point, that's definitely somebody I'd put as on the bubble. If I had to do a roster projection today, I don't know that I'd have him on the team.
Yeah, that's fair. Deshaun is in Virginia. What's up, Deshaun?
Hello, guys. How you guys doing?
Hey.
Good.
I want to talk about three things. First is the safety part or whatever. I'm having a hard time understanding the reason why they didn't try to go out to Reed because, it's been a long time since they had a traditional safety. Rangy safety, that could cover out space from sideline to sideline. That could, defend the run as well as the pass. So I'm surprised they didn't go out to Reed because Duggar sucks, and I've been saying this for a long time that they should have traded him last year. Now, when it comes to certain things about, as far as, the linebacker situation, whatever, I feel like guys like Ellis or Mapu would benefit this year because they would have more help on the defensive side. So I think they could play their respectable roles better because of that, of them boosting the defense like that. Now, when it comes to the offense, people want to talk about, Hollins, but a lot of these guys I feel like would be great if they had a number one receiver because they'd be able to play respectable roles as well. But the same thing was applied to the offense. But the problem is they don't have a number one receiver to help everybody fulfill their respectable role. So that's the issue that's basically going on. That's all I wanted to say.
Thanks, Deshaun. Thanks for the call. Yeah, I think at safety we're all hoping that a true center fielder is coming. It's not going to be
Andrew Makuba.
It's not going to be Javon
Andrew
Holland.
Makuba.
Obviously, it's not. I think he's mentioned Justin Reed. Did he sign somewhere?
Where did he go? I don't remember where he went. But
Yeah.
I know he signed.
So those guys aren't going to be it. But I don't know. I could see a vision where it's not a full-time player.
Justin Reed went to the Saints.
But that Deron Harmon role of we're going to play an obvious pass, third down, 2-minute, 4-minute offenses at the end of games, that sort of thing, which is usually factors into, a good chunk of the snaps when you really think about it in those scenarios. I definitely think that player could be had, like you mentioned, Akuba, right?
Andrew. So the two guys I look
Texas,
at,
right?
If they want to go in the first round, I guess there'd be three. If they want to go in the first round, it's Malachi Starks, but he's going to be a top 15 pick, so it's not happening without a ton of movement.
Yeah.
Andrew Makuba from Texas in the second round, 38 might be a little rich, but if they kind of hammer out some other needs here, not totally out of character, probably better off moving back into the 50s or moving up from 70 into the 50s for him. And then the day three guys would be early day three, probably at 106, would be Billy Bowman from Oklahoma. He is going to be a true rotational player. I think Makuba maybe grows into that guy that can play 85, 90% of the time. Billy Bowman's going to be rotational. You're going to be able to play him on the back end. He's also going to be able to give you some help in the slot. But I think he's a player that could certainly, if you're going to do that situationally, fill that role.
Yeah, I think that for right now, I don't think they necessarily need anything more than a Deron Harmon in terms of snap usage and playing over the top. So I would be comfortable with like a mid-round guy like Billy Bowman in that spot. Starks is interesting to me because I do wonder if his combine pushes him down kind of like Brian Branch treatment style.
It wasn't that bad, was it?
He didn't run very well.
Didn't Brian Branch run like a 4.6?
Yeah, no. I would say Brian Branch was more in trouble than him, maybe.
Yeah.
But Starks is. I still feel like and I can look it up, but if I remember correctly off the top of my head, he had one of those trust the tape type of combines, and there are
guy Cam Kitchens.
Yeah, like there are some things on his tape too. I didn't actually think that his tape it didn't blow me away.
4.5 flat, 33-inch vertical, 7.2 3-cone, 4.45 shuttle.
Yeah, it's not great. That's not great for a guy that's supposed to be playing in space in the NFL, right?
Yeah.
So I would say that there's a chance that Stark slips a little bit. Was he going to slip all the way to 38? Like probably not, but especially in a draft like this. But there's a chance just because of that combine that the athletic testing knocks him down a little bit. Like when I first started the process with the draft, Starks was on my short list of guys because of top 10, top 15 consideration. I didn't think the tape was like that eye-opening to me. I wasn't blown away by what I saw. Good pursuit player against the run. has some versatility to, he can play the nickel, he can play up top, he can play in the box. He had some issues with the angles and, tracking the ball down the field from his perch, and he got beat badly in that Texas game. I think it was Golden. That
sounds right.
Yeah, and he dove, for the ball and as an over the top, missed it, and then 60-yard touchdown right behind him. So there was some little things like that with his film that I didn't think I wasn't blown away. Which was Branch. Branch was a hell of a college player.
Yeah.
That was all overthink with the combine. If Starks fell a little bit, I don't think it would be as much of an overthink for teams. So we'll see about that. Paul is in Waltham, does that say? I don't know. I just went blind for some reason. Paul, what's up?
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Hey.
I just got one quick question for you. Coming out of this first few days of free agency, what would you rank the 3 to 4 biggest holes on the roster still? And how would you rank them in terms of we need this sorted by August 1st, we can try again next offseason?
Yeah, thanks for the call, Paul. That's a great segue because that's exactly what I wanted to talk about next. So I think 4 is a good number. I think that's right about where I'm at right now. The two biggest are obviously wide receiver and left tackle.
Yeah. If we're going to order them, though, I'd flip those.
Yeah, I probably would too. But I think the difference is, to me, is that at left tackle, if they acquired, whatever way they go about it, a Morgan Moses level talent to play left tackle, I'd be okay with that.
Is that Cam Robinson?
Maybe it's Cam Robinson. I don't know. We can talk about Cam Robinson here in a second.
It's not Cam Robinson. I don't know who it is.
But my point is that if they got NFL average at left tackle, I'd feel okay. Whereas NFL average at wide receiver isn't enough, right?
They already have that.
They need better talent at wide receiver. Whereas I think you can get away with having NFL average at the tackle spots. So that might be the one little difference in terms of order there for me. But wide receiver, left tackle, I'm still going to be pounding the table for an interior lineman. Whether it's a center or it's a guard, so sign somebody that in this veteran market that has played the position, again, just like Morgan Moses. Just give me someone that has played the position at an NFL starting level. It can be average, it can be adequate, but I just want a body there that I can trust.
Sure.
That I'm not putting all of my eggs in Cole Strange, Layden Robinson, City So, Ben Brown, to pull out 2 starters from that group. Let's pull out 1 starter from that group instead of 2.
Yep.
And I feel a lot better. On the defense side of the ball, I still think they're an edge rusher short. I think they need a pass rusher off the edge. It doesn't. They have enough. Landry, Anthony Jennings. They have enough edge setters.
They need somebody who's just going to pin his ears back.
Third down, Joshua Uche role. Someone that's going to be a really good situational pass rusher.
But that, I don't know if we're just doing free agency. I feel really good about finding that guy on day 2.
No,
even
this
early
is
day 3 of the draft.
No, draft is open on this as well. I would say that that's a draft pick. Whether it's somebody on day 2 on the second round, I mean. Azaraku, Princely. I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name.
Uman Mialan.
There we go. Who I really liked, by the way. I watched him.
He's a good player.
A little bit of recency bias with him, but I watched him recently right before free agency. He's a good player.
Somebody in the YouTube chat goes, they can literally get Josh Uche.
No, I'm
He's
okay.
a free agent.
Yeah, we've done that. But those 2 guys, I don't know if Azaraku will make it to 38. He might be a late first round
I wonder
pick.
if this is a thing where there's so many good edge rushers that guys get, and there's so many limits at other positions like receiver, even quarterback, right, that guys get pushed down because teams are okay being patient.
Yeah, I'm not totally ruling out your Ohio State guys yet. I don't think it's exactly what they need for the 2025
It's more that edge setter role.
Yeah, but I don't know how much they're going to trust Keon White as a 4-3 end, hand in the dirt player. Jack Sawyer is definitely that. He's a hand in the dirt 4-3 end. So maybe if they look at it in terms of projecting starting roles years from now, right? 2 years from now, 3 years from now, maybe you could go in that direction still. But I think we're all kind of gravitating now more towards Princely, Donovan Azaraku, sure.
Close.
Third round, my guy Josiah Stewart, just like a screamer off the edge like that, I think would go a long way. And we've mentioned free safety multiple times. Like I feel like free safety is still one of those positions that they can get better at and have somebody that is truly comfortable playing center field.
If I was going to do like the big four right now, rank them: left tackle, wide receiver, but like a starting wide receiver, not some guy that's going to plug into the middle of the depth chart and just muddy things further, right? Left tackle, unquestioned top of the depth chart wide receiver would be 2. Free safety would be 3. Guard would be 4. And then I'll also just sneak in there, and these are draft specific. I do still want to see them, even though Austin Hooper's back, I do still want to see them draft a tight end. I want to see them tap into this class and get the next guy in the pipeline because Henry and Hooper both over 30. And I do want to see them draft a running back, get some more depth in that room, and also maybe push Stevenson and Gibson on the depth chart.
Well, that was another good thing, kind of byproduct of what they did on day one of free agency is I feel like they still have enough picks that they can make some of those luxury
They have
style
some flexibility to do that.
because they don't need to desperately sign or draft like 3 defensive linemen because they didn't get anybody in free agency or get a run stuffing linebacker in the draft, which I thought was maybe like a sneaky need for the team. So I look at outside corner. Another one. Like they easily
that box is checked.
They easily could have drafted a Carlton Davis type player on day 2 or middle rounds of this draft because out of necessity because they needed to fill that hole. Now they don't because of the way that they've handled free agency so far. So they can take a running back over the top. They can take a tight end. Even still, and add him to that room. And maybe it's more of a competition with Jaheim Bell, to make the roster there at tight end, or maybe all 4 of them make the roster. Don't
forget about Robbie Oots.
Fullback.
Fullback.
Right.
Would you be in on them signing Juszczyk?
I said this yesterday, and everybody mocked me because I think I called him Kyle, didn't I? Yeah, I called him Kyle. It's a first name basis, right? Kyle Shanahan. It worries me that Kyle Shanahan thinks that he's cooked.
Does Kyle Shanahan think that he's cooked, or are they just totally hitting the reset button over there?
That's like Kyle Shanahan's 5th son. I don't know how many sons he has.
What if
I just made that number up? But you know what I'm trying to say. That's like a family member to Kyle Juszczyk.
What if Kyle Shanahan really likes Robbie Oots and is clearing the way?
No, I remember a couple years ago. This was a long time ago. We're getting old. It's probably around 2019.
Yeah.
2020. I was at the Combine, and this was when Bill was still here. So Belichick never talked at the Combine, so you never had any real Patriots stuff. You know the drill now. So you never had any Patriots stuff on that Tuesday, right?
Right.
So I would just bounce around. This guy, go to the Giants because Odell Beckham might get traded. Go here because that guy might get traded. And of course, when Kyle Shanahan talked,
you had to go to that.
Where I was front and center, and I asked him about fullbacks and his how he uses fullbacks. And this guy waxed poetic about Kyle Juszczyk and the fullback, and he told me at that time that he will never have a roster that doesn't feature a fullback. He will always have a fullback on his team, period. So everybody
San Francisco 49er Robbie Oots, it's coming.
Everybody thinks Kyle Juszczyk is probably the best fullback in football, maybe in the history of football. And
I don't know about that.
And you're telling me that Kyle Shanahan is cutting that player that speaks to me, then tells me that he might be cooked. He might be washed.
So is Debo cooked then? Can we say that?
I think that's a little different,
because I took heat for saying that. Is it? Kyle Shanahan's giving up on him. Apparently, this is the rule.
No,
when Kyle Shanahan's moving on from players, they're cooked.
Fullback that's different.
I think you just got take cornered into saying
no.
Debo,
It's different.
It's
a different. It's
not different. How's it different? I don't understand. How
also,
it's different.
Debo Samuel might be washed.
That's all right. So I got yelled at for saying that. So this is what can we say Debo's washed then? If we're saying that this means Kyle Juszczyk is washed.
Before we go back to the phones, I want to go back to those needs that we talked about and just start throwing some names out there. Let's start with wide receiver. I think we have to talk about the Cooper Kupp of it all. Cup check, if you will.
How long you been holding on to that one?
I thought of that one last night.
There you go.
I think we have to talk about it. If we're honest about the type of player that Cooper Kupp is now, and if you look at his advanced metrics, separation, yards after the catch, contested catch ability, it is a precipitous drop year after year from 2021, his 1,900 yards season, right?
Yeah.
We're from 2021, each year gets progressively worse. in terms of the analytics of it all.
He's getting older.
So you look at all that, and you look at a team like the Rams, who, one, no offense, better than maybe anybody, and have maybe the brightest offensive mind in the league running the team in Sean McVay, and two, are one of the most analytically driven organizations in the league. They are telling you that Cooper Kupp can't run anymore, is what I'm worried about. Their metrics, their science is telling you that he has no more burst, or doesn't have the same burst, right? That would be concerning to me. All of these things are concerning to me. With that being said, I'm coming around to the idea of whether it's Cooper Kupp, it's Stephon Diggs, it's Amari Cooper, one of these aging star receivers for a team like the Patriots that keeps striking out at this position. Godwin, Metcalf, Ayuk, Ridley.
Ayuk's out there again, apparently.
They might need to take a chance on one of these guys, is my point. And I think the hope would be that he is able to still be like a wide receiver 2 on a depth chart.
Yeah.
And then maybe in the draft, and this is kind of my other big take about wide receiver, maybe in the draft you go out and get the guy, the true number 1 receiver. But at this stage of his career, can Cooper Kupp be the number 2 guy? Like, can he be a number 2 guy? I'm willing to take that chance if the money is right. And I would also mention that I think he's a really good fit in the slot for Josh McDaniels. I think that he understands space, and he understands how to find soft spots in zones. I think he understands how to run option routes. Certainly understands how to run option routes. That's all he ran for Sean McVay, or those choice routes in their offense. So he understands and has a great feel for the middle of the field. Like, I do think stylistically he's a nice fit with McDaniels. Like, if Godwin was like the apex of this player that might be available, it would make sense for them to pivot stylistically to Cooper Kupp. And okay, now you don't necessarily need to have him via trade, right? You can just get him if he's released at 4:00. So I'm coming around to the idea of just taking a flyer on one of these guys and hoping that the Fountain of Youth, delivers, for a year or two.
I guess I at this point I'm kind of like, all right, well, you choose between the age with Kupp. I'm done. I'm out of Amari Cooper. I don't think Amari Cooper's going to give you anything.
Yeah.
You're choosing between the age with Kupp and the injury concern with Stephon Diggs. I think those are your two options. I am very much on the record as being nervous about wide receivers coming off injury. I said it about Godwin. I said it about Ayuk. Everybody knows how much I like Diggs, how great of a player I think he is. I think the character stuff's overblown. I mean, he was named a captain last year in his first year in Houston. Like, yeah, he's a little eccentric. Show me a good receiver that isn't, right? The guy clearly locked in when
People
it mattered in that regard.
About Stephon Diggs? Oh, I guess because of the way it ended.
Because the way it ended in Buffalo. Yeah. But was that his fault, or is everybody's golden boy maybe not as golden as people
MVP
think?
of the league. Yeah.
Did Joel Embiid MVP? I don't know. This isn't necessarily me saying sign Stephon Diggs, because it's coming off the torn ACL. When will he be ready?
Right.
We've seen them try to do this with guys before. But if it comes down to Diggs or Kupp, I think you can make as strong a case for either. I don't know that. I would say I would consider Diggs as strongly as I would consider Kupp, but I don't know that I feel strongly one way or the other. Like, I wouldn't hate seeing them add one of those guys at this point, what things have come to. But I don't know. You want to tell me that Kupp makes sense because he fits more in the offense and he's at least healthy or healthier, and fine. You want to tell me Diggs is the answer because he's more of what they need in theory when he's healthy, and he has more upside as that number 1 guy, and he's not quite as old. I could buy that argument too. I don't know. I could go either way on either one of them, but I would consider them both equally.
Stephon Diggs was better last year, no doubt about it. Like, Stephon Diggs was still a top 15 receiver in the league when he was healthy last year. So he certainly has a much higher ceiling. Like, Stephon Diggs, you could sign him, and if he somehow bounces back with no setbacks or anything like that from the ACL, he's a number 1 receiver.
Right.
Cooper Kupp isn't that anymore. I think the biggest thing that you see with Cooper Kupp on tape is he used to be a demon after the catch, right? Like, he would catch the ball and he'd be shot out of the cannon. He'd run those like 5 to 6 yard option routes, those juke routes, those wiggle routes over the middle, and he would catch it and he would just be out of the gates. He doesn't have that kind of juice anymore. So now on 3rd and 3, when he catches that option route over the middle, he might get you 4 yards,
Yeah.
but he's not getting you 14.
Right.
Whereas in 2021, he was getting you 14, 20, 25 yards after the catch. And that was, why he had such a great season. But he's not that player anymore. He can still move the chains. He's just not going to run by anybody or run through anybody. Stefon Diggs could still be a number 1 receiver just because he's healthier and you're not worried about the whole ACL recovery and all that. I'd probably lean towards Cooper Kupp just a little bit, but I wouldn't be opposed to either.
At this point, you're kind of crossing your fingers and hoping either way, right?
Yeah.
So,
but I think they're in a position where they need to cross their fingers and hope.
So why not get the guy that maybe hope for a little bit more?
Just because I think he's going to be available to start the season. I think that's big. I think he's
well,
available.
It also
in
here's the flip
camp.
side of it. I think you could argue that we broke this down before when we were talking about Mac Hollins, you're going to have this roster crunch.
Yeah.
This is sort of what they did with Kendrick Bourne last year. Well, now you kind of save a roster spot. You see in September who works in this new system from the young guys who doesn't, and then Diggs comes in once you kind of have that all figured out. You're not losing that much. So Diggs got hurt
in October, right?
Halloween weekend. It was the same time Kendrick Bourne did.
Right. So
Kendrick Bourne came back in what? October?
He's a PUP player. He's not going to. So that means no offseason program, no training camp, no preseason.
That's true.
You start to build these things up. When's the first time that Stefon Diggs is going to catch passes from Drake May? It will be Halloween weekend 2025, right, when he's back on the field. So I just look at Cooper Kupp, and I think healthier to start the season would help because now he's in the room. Now he's doing all the intangible stuff that I think people are attracted to.
You can still do that even if you're on IR. I'll also say with Kupp, too, last 3 years, 9 games, 12 games, 12 games.
I mean, no, he's been banged up.
That's a guy you worry about being hurt,
production
too.
is in his advanced metrics have cratered, excuse me. He's not the guy he was anymore. Yeah. He's not.
You're making valid points. Again, I wouldn't hate if they added one of them. I don't know that I'm going to, if they sign one of them, I would say, they should have had the other, right?
Yeah.
I think you can make a case for both of them. It's just sort of what you're looking for, what you value in that signing.
All I'm making the case for, because I agree with that last point that you just made, all I'm making the case for is that a team like the Patriots has to take a flyer on one of these guys.
Right.
That's all I'm making the case for. Take a flyer on one of them. At best, maybe you strike gold and Stefon Diggs ends up going back to Buffalo Stefon Diggs and is a great player for you. At worst, you have a veteran adult in the room who's been there, done it at a high level, who can maybe be a wide receiver 2 for a year or two and teach some of the young guys and bring them along.
Didn't you have a receiver in the draft that your comp was Diggs?
Matthew Golden. Yeah.
Draft Matthew Golden.
So
sign
here,
Stefon Diggs, he can teach him.
So here's my other take at wide receiver. Yeah. I am coming more and more to terms the wrong word, but around to considering a offensive skill player at 4 overall in this draft.
Okay.
Because 2 things. One, I can't get that quote from Vrabel out of my head from the combine when we had the post press conference scrum, and he mentioned that a lot of the time at that position you have to draft your own.
Yep.
I can't get that out of my head. He's right. They're not going to have somebody gift them a wide receiver 1.
Right.
I hate that term, but they're not going to have a top wide receiver.
Right.
They're not going to gift him to you. Okay? And those guys don't want to come here. You can't get them to come here. I don't know what the exact number was, but they tried to aggressively pursue Chris Godwin and pry him out of Tampa, and he took less money to not come here.
Significantly less.
DK Metcalf, I don't think was ever seriously considering a trade to the Patriots.
Well, it sounds like they weren't considering it either,
but I don't think I don't think he was taking your money. Brandon Ayuk wouldn't take your money. Calvin Ridley wouldn't take your money last year. So all these players are telling you it's just not a desirable enough situation yet to land in New England. It just isn't. So what I would consider at 4 overall, if it has to be 4 overall, we're talking Ted McMillan.
Yeah.
We're talking Tyler Warren.
Yeah.
I don't think we're talking Matthew Golden. I think that's really rich for Matthew Golden, but he's getting a lot of top receiver in this class, wide receiver.
Where's your ceiling
buzz.
for Golden? Let's say you can trade down. You trade down to 10. You taking Golden at 10?
I might. Yeah.
I might too.
So I think we're talking those guys, and because they made me yesterday, I'll put Genty in there too. Like
you do have to.
Yeah,
and you can put him at the bottom of the list. How about this one, though? Let's say they don't sign the left tackle. Let's say they don't sign Cam Robinson, and I don't feel great about, any of the other guys that are out there being a definitive answer. Maybe they're competing with Vidarian Lowe and they win the job, but they're not a definitive answer. After all of this,
yes,
after this whole freaking cycle,
yep.
And I'm going back to August when we were still doing shows in that other room when they were building the studio, right?
Yeah.
After all this, is there a chance we come back around to the conversation turning into Will Campbell versus Tet McMillan?
I really am coming around to Tet McMillan.
After all of this, that was the two guys. We said it's either going to be the top left tackle in the draft or the top wide receiver in the draft. Those two were, and this is assuming Carter and Hunter off the board. Those were the two guys we were looking at the top of those respective positions. There's been some reporting that the Patriots may still see Campbell as a tackle. To your point, Mike Vrabel said that thing about the wide receiver. If McMillan's at the top of their board, we went through Abdul Carter. We went through Travis Hunter. We went through this weird phase where they were definitely trading down. Then it was, maybe this or maybe that.
We still have 6 weeks to go. I mean, we're going to go through 17 more.
No, but I'm saying, is there a chance that by the end of this, because we're going to do Ted McMillan and Matthew Golden and Tyler Warren and Ashton Genty right now.
Yeah.
By the end of this, do we end up back where we started in August, where it's Will Campbell, Ted McMillan, who's your guy, and that's the conversation?
I feel like this happens every year. I mean, maybe we're not when they were picking lower and we didn't really know, but like we did this last year.
That's true.
Like we all came out of the gate and said quarterback, and then everybody started to talk themselves out of the quarterbacks, and then we're back into the quarterbacks.
Not all of us. Not all of us.
Not all of us, but I'm just saying
this was a pretty consensus around the globe.
I've put
kind
of your consensus for the most part too. Like obviously Travis Hunter would be the dream in this scenario that I'm picturing right now as your top wide receiver, but like when you look at that group, I think it's a real strong consideration. You're not going to get Abdul Carter,
right?
I think that's a absolute pipe dream. There's not a Joe Alt tackle in this draft. Will Campbell at 4 to be an absolute gigantic arm length wingspan outlier.
Yeah.
Is a risky proposition. And my point being with, let's just say it's Tet McMillan, because I think that he's probably the best player out of this group to fit this argument besides Travis Hunter. With Tet McMillan, okay, so let's say Tet McMillan is should really be cast as a second wide receiver, right? Like
let's say he's Drake London. We'll go back to
let's say he's Drake London, say it's T. Higgins, like he's a wide receiver too, really. Well, if you're that much better in 25 and he's a really good player in 25, now in 26, like you might be able to get DK Metcalf. You might be able to get that true number one guy.
The Bengals got Higgins before they got Chase, right?
Yeah.
Do I have that timeline right?
Right.
That's essentially what you're saying?
Great point. Right. Like maybe your order of operations isn't perfect, but you just put a good enough product, like you get to that floor where you put a good enough product on the field next year. Drake May takes those next steps where now all of a sudden in 2026, you are a wide receiver destination.
And also what looks like long way out, but what looks like a much better wide receiver draft class.
Sure. Or someone comes free via trade again, or free agency again, probably trade, and now that player wants to come here. So I don't necessarily even need Tet McMillan to be the answer to all the problems. He might just be a step towards the answer.
But are you okay taking that guy at 4? I think there'd be people saying, well, if you take the guy at 4, he should be the guy at the top of the depth chart.
But he still has a chance to be that. I still think he has a ceiling that could be that. But my point being is that it's not this end of the world scenario if he's not that. Like if he's not that, then at least you still have a really good high-end wide receiver too. And in 2026, you go for the big fish again. Like, what's so wrong with that scenario? Like, why is that such a bad outcome?
No, I don't hate that.
And the last thing I would just say about it at the top of the draft is that I don't see a lot of separation between these players. Like, if you throw Tet McMillan, Mason Graham, Will Campbell, Michael Williams, Jalen Walker, Tyler Warren. Like, I don't see the talent level being all that different across these players. And I keep saying the same thing. Like, this is going to be as much about fit for each individual team as it's going to be best player available. It's so easy to sit here and just say, just draft the best player on your board. This year, there's not going to be a lot of separation between these guys. There's not going to be that, this guy's a blue chip prospect and this guy isn't. Like, that doesn't exist in this draft past Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter. So if I can easily tell you that that Tet McMillan is going to be as good of a player as Mason Graham. Like, I think that's an easy thing to pitch. So I'm coming around to that because of what Vrabel said at the Combine. I'm coming around to it because it just, what's the best pick for the football team might be that. And just to finish that take, when we get into the left tackle conversation, I don't hate the idea of trading back up into the back end of the first round to get the next wave of tackles, right? Get a Josh Connerly, get a Josh Simmons maybe at that point. If you sign somebody in free agency like Cam Robinson on a bridge contract, that could make some sense. Arianti Ursary, right, might start to make sense now at the top of the second or late first. Like, there are options like that in this draft in that 20 to 40 range that you can still come out of the draft with a guy that can play the left side that has the upside to be a starting caliber left tackle. So it's not like you're completely missing out on the tackle either. Like, would you, in my mind, I'm just getting to the point now where, I've kind of written off Will Campbell as a guard. Like, I don't think that it's a wise choice.
What do you think they have? That was more the point I was making with the full circle. Regardless of what we think.
Maybe.
Do you think they've written him off as a guard?
No inside information.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think that they would take a complete outlier at 4 overall right now. I don't think this regime has enough built up like cachet to take that kind of pick and have him turn out to be a guard, right? And have it turn out to work out that way for them. So would you rather, and this is the draft, would you rather Tet McMillan, and let's just call it because I think it's the most realistic in terms of not trading all around the board.
Yeah.
Tet McMillan and Arianti Ursary.
Okay.
Or Will Campbell and insert, day 2 wide receiver here. Jaden Higgins,
sure. Probably McMillan and Ursary.
That's just the way I'm leaning right now because at least I know those two guys are built to play the positions we're going to try to play them at. Right? Like, and you're not trying to put a guard at tackle or, a right tackle at left tackle or a left tackle at right tackle. Like, everybody, Ted McMillan's an X, Arianti Ursary is a left tackle.
Yes.
And we're not messing around with
all of that. And neither of them are hurt. Neither of them are they're ready to go.
Yeah.
High floor picks. That's essentially what you're campaigning for here.
100%.
High floor picks.
Yeah.
All right.
And then,
Ursary's a ceiling guy. I don't want to put Ursary in that, he's not a floor guy, but in the way you're phrasing it.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what they need right now, right?
Can I throw a third one in there for you?
Sure.
This is a little more maneuvering on the board, but this is like the trade down, trade up thing.
Yeah.
Matthew Golden, Josh Simmons.
Yeah. And I think
no, but I'm saying like that or McMillan and Ursary.
So here's my other part of this take, right? Yeah. I'm also coming around to, obviously, Cam Robinson is not having the market Cam Robinson was expecting to have. If there was an offer out there for Cam Robinson for 3 for $60, he would be signed already, right? Like that would be done. So his market is maybe lukewarm. And I know that there's been some reporting, I think Breer had it, that there's some concern about motivation and just effort and all those kinds of things with Cam Robinson. So is it, and I'm just kind of facilitating here, is it a good scenario for the Patriots to maybe you sign Cam Robinson to a 1-year deal that is basically the deal that the Jets gave Tyron Smith last year? It's one for like 15-ish.
Right. Significant money, but just for 1 year.
And it's incentive laden. And at that point, you at least, again, have a player on the roster that has played left tackle in the NFL at a starting caliber level. And now you can draft Josh Simmons. Well, or now you can draft the high upside day 2 left
You have
tackle.
to get Robinson to take the contract. But
yeah, but I'm just saying that now that opens that up.
It would open that up a little bit.
Yeah.
Like I know I've been very anti them drafting Josh Simmons.
Yeah.
If he's not the first player they take and they get a guy like Cam Robinson on the roster, I don't know that it would be my favorite pick, but it makes a lot more sense now.
That's another logical scenario for them.
Yeah.
Because right now the left tackles in free agency, it's Cam Robinson or
It's
bust.
right. Like I know
There's
some
nobody
people
left.
like Jedrick Wills, just the way it ended last year in Cleveland. I'm not sure that's the kind of guy they're looking to add. Now maybe you could say Robinson isn't either, but Robinson's a much more proven player.
Right. So I think it's Robinson or bust in free agency. If I'm going to invest in Robinson, again, I'm thinking of 1-year deal, high money, high guarantee.
Yeah.
It resets his value. It gives the Patriots a safety net if their draft pick doesn't work out.
But you also have a draft. You also want to have a draft pick in the building to push him.
100%. Like you still absolutely need to draft a left tackle in the top 50. Like that's not debatable.
Top 100. I'd call it top 100.
Top 50.
If you get like Anthony Belton at 77,
No,
I think he
no.
accomplishes that.
Nope.
No? All right.
Higher.
Disagree then.
Connerly, Ursery, Josh Simmons. One of those guys has to be on this roster if this is the scenario.
Well, we're kind of updating takes post free agency, and we're on tackles. So
Yeah.
Membu, we're done with for the Patriots. We're done with Armand Membu.
I think so.
I agree with you. He's a right tackle. That's what he is. Good
Yeah.
right tackle.
Yeah.
But he's a right tackle. I don't know that, and it's probably only 1 year for Morgan Moses. I'm not using a top 10 pick to get a future right tackle. Like
No, and I'm not out on like Ozzie Trapilo.
Sure. Yeah.
Because
No, if you want to
draft-
get the next guy.
Right, you draft
but
him in the third round,
yeah.
and he's the next guy.
We
sure,
just don't want to do that at 4.
right.
Yeah. Agree.
We'll see where Kelvin Banks ends up.
Yeah.
I think Kelvin Banks is going to settle at a top 20 pick. Like I don't think that he's going to have this fall that some people think that he's going to have. But we'll see where he ends up. Is there a chance that I think Amarius Mims went 20 last year exactly. Like if he's at 20, like can you make that trade? It's 18 spots. It's a big trade. But can you make it happen, right? And maybe you actually get Banks.
I mean, that's probably close to. That's pretty close to the trade when they moved back and got Duggar.
Yeah.
Which was 23 for I think 36 and 71.
Yeah.
So you throw in like a future day 3 pick that
Right.
maybe gets it done.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would make. And you're talking about Banks as a left tackle.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That could work.
Right. So, you trade back up into the 20s and you kind of put yourself on the board for Banks, potentially, Connerly, Simmons, like all those guys at the back end of the first round. I think that's a viable option as well. So that's left tackle and wide receiver. When it comes to edge, I mean, we've kicked some names around already. I still think that you need somebody kind of similarly, talking about safety nets. Like, I don't know if Harold Landry has the juice anymore to be a really good, third down pass rusher. Like the metrics aren't good. They're not friendly to him right now in terms of that. So maybe he's not that guy anymore. So you might actually have to be taking some of these guys off the field. Like you might still be a little bit situational with your rushers. So you need another really good pass rusher off the edge. We mentioned free safety. So we kind of threw out names already for those two positions. Interior offensive line, still a big need to me. I am not counting on Robinson, and Strange.
Nope.
Or Ben Brown.
They can compete. I mean, I think they're good. And I think at least like Ben Brown, if he's your backup center, that's a pretty good situation. But I'm not having those guys in starting roles without competition.
No, like right now, if they had to play a game tomorrow, they still have Vidarian Low left tackle, which is not.
Well, they don't have to play a game tomorrow, thankfully.
Right, but just to play out the exercise. They still have Vidarian Low left tackle, which is not okay with me. Like that can't be it. And at left guard, they're still at, Layden Robinson, Cole Strange, City So competing. I would just like to see them add a veteran body there. Josh Myers is a center, a pure center from Green Bay. He's out there still. I watched a little bit of Tevin Jenkins yesterday. I didn't think he moved very well last year. It looks injured. I don't know. There's potentially chronic back issues there with Tevin Jenkins, which would worry me, right, in terms of his mobility. So that would be maybe a little bit concerning. And then a lot of the other guys are right guards by trade. Kevin Zeitlers of the world, like those guys are all right guards. But I still think that there's another option there. Maybe it's a true center. Maybe it's Jenkins to play the left guard spot. The one that I would really now strongly consider is Mekhi Becton. I think that
even moving him to the left side.
Yeah, I think Mekhi Becton at left guard would be perfectly fine. I really like the idea of Becton. He might make a little bit too much money for what they're willing to spend there, but I think that Mekhi Becton is exactly what I'm looking for. Right? Like, you've said it now. Like he's your left guard going into next season. So those are the spots. Is there anybody else that I didn't mention that are worth mentioning before we go back
free
to
agency?
Yeah,
no,
that's available. Nobody else that stands out to you?
I think that's it.
All right. Well, whether you're in the game or betting on the game, you'll need a game plan. DraftKings Sportsbook, the official betting partner of the New England Patriots, provides you with everything you need to build your personal betting game plan so you can get in on all the action while practicing safe bets. Visit DraftKings.com/responsible-gaming to learn more about all the safe betting tools DraftKings has to offer. Hope is here, 800-327-5050 or gamblinghelplinema.org. Must be 21 plus. Play it smart from the start. GameSenseMA.com. Physically present in Massachusetts. See DraftKings.com/responsible-gaming for all details and state-specific responsible gambling resources. I gotta go to the second page here and talk about Bridgestone. Confidence, it's important to have when you're on the road. With Bridgestone tires on your car, truck, SUV, or minivan, you're riding on your tires you can trust. Bridgestone tires are engineered to give you peace of mind so you can focus on enjoying the journey. So whether you're on your morning commute, a cross-country road trip, or a relaxing Sunday drive, Bridgestone tires will be with you wherever life's road may lead. Bridgestone, solutions for your journey, available now at Sullivan Tire. And the last one here, Catch-22 is sponsored by Massachusetts 250 campaign, commemorating a history of possibility. Plan your revolutionary weekend at Massachusetts250.org. All right, so last 30 minutes here are all about you guys. We got a bunch of emails. We got people on the phones. So you guys are going to close us out here. Randy is in Providence. What's up, Randy?
Hey, so a couple names I was thinking about in the draft after free agency. Late, like day 2, maybe early day 3, like Aeneas Peoples, Ty Robinson, Omar Norman Lott, guys at interior pass rushers to like kind of build up that spot in case Barmore doesn't come back. Also, Oladejo, who's a great run stopper on the edge. I also wanted to say Jaden Higgins in the second round, right? You said Mike Vrabel said you need to draft those guys. He drafted A.J. Brown in the second round. He didn't take him top 5. I think Ted McMillan's vastly overrated. But I also wanted to ask you guys, because you guys were at the Senior Bowl, right? Both of you?
Evan was.
Yep.
Okay, so I had heard a report. I don't remember exactly where it was, but I heard somebody that was there saying, like it was kind of like a worst-kept secret sort of thing, that Mike Vrabel and staff were absolutely in love with Will Campbell, like thought he was the best player in the draft, would take him number 1 to play left tackle, didn't care about his arm length, et cetera, et cetera. Mike Vrabel, I haven't met the man. I'm not friends with the man, but he just, everything that I see he does in terms of hiring, in terms of what I've heard reported about him is that, he's kind of a very loyal and maybe sometimes a little stubborn guy. And I just wouldn't be surprised if maybe that was the plan. Given everything they haven't done at left tackle in free agency, did you hear that at all at Senior Bowl? Did you get that impression? Do you think that could be the plan? And then what do you think about Jaden Higgins in the second round? Because I think he's the best wide receiver prospect in this draft, personally. He's got better physical tools than Tet, comparable production in a comparable situation.
Thanks for the call, Randy. Appreciate it. I didn't hear anything that definitive on Will Campbell. There's been a lot of reporting that the Patriots weren't overly caught up in the arm length stuff, right? Like we have heard that from multiple outlets.
I'm right or wrong, I still think that there's maybe a chance that they view Will Campbell in certain situations as a tackle. I'm not totally writing that off.
No, I'm not totally writing it off. I don't think that they were that set in anything.
Maybe that strong, especially that early. But
to have that early, to have it that set in January is pretty unrealistic to me. Especially if he had been on the job for like a couple weeks at that point. Like, I just can't imagine that they had enough intel to be that dead set on anybody in this draft. Now, that being said, I would be absolutely floored if they had Will Campbell rated higher than Travis Hunter. Like, they there's been reports. We had Elliot Wolf on our draft podcast at the Combine, really excited about Travis Hunter. Like, I would be absolutely shocked if they think that Will Campbell's a better prospect than Travis Hunter, just from everything that we've heard.
Yeah, but all I'm saying is I'm not closing the door on the idea that they view Will Campbell as a tackle.
No, I'm not closing any doors. To his point about Jaden Higgins, I'm a big Jaden Higgins fan. I think he plays slower than he tested. I don't think he necessarily runs as well as that 40 blew me away. I thought he was going to be mid 4.5s. He was 4.47. I did not expect that kind of speed out of him. He doesn't play to that speed on tape. I'm usually a guy that is a tape over combine, 40 time type of guy. Like, I try to trust it and trust my eyes in that sense. When I watched Jaden Higgins on tape, I thought more crafty than athlete, explosiveness. His combine blew me away. I mean, he was a great athlete in terms of the testing.
Yeah.
In all walks, agility. I don't know if he did those, but explosiveness, 40 times, size, had it all. He to me is more, the guy that I would comp Jaden Higgins to is like a Michael Pittman in Indy, where he's big bodied, so he can win some of those jump balls down the field. But he's really a possession receiver. He's really a first and second level receiver. I'm okay. I like Jaden Higgins. I'm not saying that I think he's a bad prospect. One thing that Randy said that he thought that Tet McMillan is very overrated. I think we've gone too far in that direction with Tet McMillan.
Yeah.
I think we have now underrated Tet McMillan because everybody is saying that he was overrated to begin with. I've said time and time again that he isn't a Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors, Roma Dunze level prospect. He never was, and he never is going to be. I would probably have him in that conversation in that next wave of last year's class with Brian Thomas Jr. and Xavier Worthy and those types of players. He's not Marvin Harrison Jr. He's not Malik Neighbors. But now I feel like we've gone the other direction where he's a stiff. And, Jaden Higgins, who's going to go on day 2 and Tet's going to go day 1, is actually a better player. I think we're getting a little crazy.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. He's still a good player. He's just not. We've had how many years of these generational wide receiver, I should say, in air quotes, wide receiver prospects. And if they're coming every year, they're not generational. And now this year, he's just not quite that guy, so everybody thinks he sucks.
You have to be realistic about what you're getting. You're not getting a field stretcher. You're getting a guy that's going to win with size and fluidity and snappy at the top of the route at the first and second level. He's a possession receiver.
He's not N'Keal Harry. I think that's what so many people are defaulting
Definitely
to.
A different player.
Let me ask you this. This is a weird question. What is the comp for Tet McMillan if he's a bust? Right, because it's not. If he busts, he's not going to bust in the way N'Keal Harry did.
Yeah,
do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, what is maybe to get people to understand this a little more? Ceiling, middle, floor comps, right?
Yeah.
So, Drake London's not. T. Higgins is probably the ceiling comp, right?
Yeah. I mean, Drake London had a great year last
year.
Drake
London is he's middle to high middle.
Yeah.
Who is the basement bust comp for Tet McMillan? Because I don't think it's N'Keal Harry.
No, I have to think about that. I don't know. I don't have a great one off the top of my head. Big body receiver that just can't get open would be the guy.
Well, but people would tell you that's N'Keal Harry.
But N'Keal Harry was stiff. N'Keal Harry was robotic. N'Keal Harry had 2 left
feet. Right.
He's
still
that's not Tet McMillan.
Even if you drag, even if he's a bust, he's still gonna have his physical traits.
Right. Tet McMillan is just not super fast. I don't know.
Is it Quentin Johnson?
No, Quentin Johnson's fast. Quentin Johnson's an explosive guy. He just can't catch.
I'm just kind of looking back through.
We'll think about it. I'll think about that. But that's
Jahan Dotson?
No, not big enough.
Not Kadarius Toney. I'm looking at previous high draft pick busts. Not Jalen Reagor. Laviska Shenault?
No. Laviska Chenault's Cordell Patterson.
Oh, Chase Claypool?
Maybe. That's not a bad one. Chase Claypool was a great athlete, though. Chase Claypool could fly.
I always thought that 40 was kind of, like you said about Higgins. Was he really that fast?
He might have been. He was a good athlete. Had a really good rookie year.
Corey Davis?
Not terrible, but no. Well, let's think about it. Let's get back to the phones and we'll think about
Will
that
Fuller?
Kendall's in North Carolina. What's up, Kendall?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Hey.
Yeah, I want to know, do y'all think that 2 quarterbacks would go top 4 this year? And if Russell Wilson goes to the Giants, how do you think they'll still go quarterback in the first round?
If Russell Wilson goes to the Giants, thanks for the call, Kendall. If the Giants sign Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers, I think they're out on quarterback at 3.
If they sign Aaron Rodgers, definitely. If Cam Ward gets to 3, does Brian Daboll look at it and say, all right, I have Russ for a year or 2, and now I have my next guy in the pipeline? That wouldn't surprise me. He's a quarterback's guy. And Russell Wilson does see he went through that all with Justin Fields last year. Russell Wilson, I think, is the kind of guy that might actually mentor the next guy. Rodgers isn't doing that. Rodgers isn't going to let you draft a quarterback at 3. That's out the window. I could see them double dipping if it's Russell Wilson.
I think the only reason why I guess they could, teams like the Giants or Cleveland, if they sign a Wilson or Rodgers, could buck trends is because of your boy Michael Penix, right? Like,
yeah,
the Falcons draft Michael Penix and it ends up working out. Maybe not the exact way that they wanted it to,
but it worked.
Because really all of the other things with the trends, like Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward are older. Like they've been in college for a while. Shedeur obviously transferred. Cam Ward is another 4 or 5 year starter.
3 schools. I know that.
Yeah. So they both are 24. I want to say.
No, they're not that.
Yeah,
old.
I think they are.
No.
But
yeah, like the Michael Penix situation is not a bad cop.
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
Cam Ward will turn 23 in May.
Okay, so he's gonna be 24.
He's 23-year-old rookie.
Yeah.
No, Shedeur just turned 23. Yeah. Okay. I didn't think Shedeur was that old.
Yeah, I mean, he's at?
I forgot he was at Jackson State for 2 years.
Yeah,
he was
only
at
Jackson
for a year.
State.
Yeah.
So
he was at Jackson State, but I thought only for a year.
So they're older prospects, and I the only reason why I bring that up because your boy Penix is kind of throwing that out. Like, it doesn't matter, right?
You got Michael Penix is a baller. Like, let's not forget that.
Yeah,
the guy can. I take Penix over Ward or Sanders.
100%. But my point being with the age thing, is actually more that, especially in Shedeur's case, I think there's still room to grow for Cam Ward because he's toolsy enough that I could see more upside there with coaching and everything. Yep. I kind of feel like Shedeur is Shedeur. Like he's sort of a floor quarterback to me. Like I don't necessarily look at Shedeur and see like a ton of physical upside there for him as a player. Like, I think that he's going to be a guy that could probably start in the league next year and be a functional game manager type. I think he's in that same category. Yeah.
Just because the line was so bad at Colorado, I think there's maybe some room for him to grow there, but I get what you're saying.
Like, I don't think that Shedeur is going to take these massive leaps in the NFL.
No.
Is my point.
I'm with you there.
So, like, if you're a team like the Giants or the Browns and you draft Shedeur and now you sign Aaron Rodgers, so at least for a year, you're going to sit Shedeur on the bench for another year. Like, I just don't see why bother.
Again, I think you look what happened with the Falcons. You sign one of these veteran quarterbacks, a guy who is on the back end, and you want to be ready if he drops off.
I'm just having a tough time imagining it's not going
to happen with Rodgers because Rodgers won't let it happen.
I just feel like
I think with Russell Wilson,
it's possible.
It could happen.
Yeah,
it's a copycat league. Wait, hang on, I got a couple more receiver busts for you.
I just think it's a copycat league, and that might change things.
Yeah.
But to your point about Penix being good, like, Penix might have just been so good that the Falcons looked at it and were like, we can't pass on this.
I was trying to tell people, you can get him at the second round.
Your victory laps. That was.
I will never stop with that victory lap.
This is not the point of
the only one that's going to would have been bigger is if the Vikings had signed a quarterback.
But right, like, Penix was so good that you could maybe make that case. I don't think you can make that case with Cam Ward and Shedeur. Like, if you're drafting,
I think you can make it for Cam Ward.
If you're drafting one of those two guys, and you really have to believe in that guy, right? And like putting him on the bench for a year, I
think some of it is too. Like, Kirk Cousins got that massive contract, right?
Yeah.
He was signed to be a definitive starter. Is Russell Wilson going to get that kind of money? Is Russell Wilson going to have that kind of job security?
I don't know.
No, he's not. He's not. He's not going to be a. It's not like you're coming down from where Cousins was to if we're going to come to the Falcons. Hang on, a couple more receivers for you.
Okay, all right.
So this is, again, if Ted McMillan is a bust, what is his comp? Because we don't think it's N'Keal Harry.
Okay.
Will Fuller.
No.
Kevin White.
No.
All right, I'm going to give you one more. This is super weird because people like this guy, but he's maybe the most overrated wide receiver of his era.
Oh.
Because he had 1 good year, 2 good years. Michael Thomas. But, like, is Ted McMillan, like, post-2019 Michael Thomas?
Closer.
right? Because Michael Thomas was really good at running slant routes, and then that was kind of it.
Yeah.
And teams basically figured out how to counter it, and then he got hurt. So, because Ted McMillan is big, but he's also kind of that guy where he's going to be exposed a lot to big hits because of his size.
Closer.
Okay.
That's probably your closest one yet.
Honestly, you could make an argument that Ted McMillan's ceiling, middle, floor are all Michael Thomas.
So I
just
thought,
different stages of Michael Thomas.
I actually thought when I was doing comps for all the receivers, I actually thought of Michael Thomas with Jaden Higgins.
Okay.
You know, like a guy that I think is going to really win at the first and second level and not running by anybody and kind of be a slant boy and like all that kind of stuff. I kind of thought of that with Jaden Higgins, and I guess Jaden Higgins is kind of day two Ted McMillan.
Yeah.
So maybe like washed Michael Thomas is like how he is a complete bust.
All right.
That was a long way to get to that point.
Saints should have kept Brandon Cooks.
Mike is in Virginia. What's up, Mike? Mike. All right, Mike. Sorry about that. If you're still there, call back in. Eldred, what's going on, Eldred?
Hey, Evan, Alex, how y'all doing?
Hey.
Good.
I think T-Mac gonna surprise all of y'all. But if you come with a bust, I'm coming with Laquan Treadwell. Used to be with the Vikings, then he went to the Steelers.
Yeah.
6'4".
He was just he was so raw, you know.
Yeah,
like,
he also wasn't the mover that McMillan is.
But big body receiver. You're on the right track.
Yeah. My question is this. I got two questions for you. Why ain't nobody talking about James Pierce as a edge rusher? Because to me, doing that combine, he reminded me of Gonzo, smooth, everything. You know, had a good combine and all that. And then the other one is Dante Thornton Jr. And I know you talked about him earlier, but his strength is size and speed. He could play against man press, zone safety over top. His weakness just kind of slows him down with that. But other than that, he's good at hand fighting, and he's good against man coverage, and he's a 6'4", 4'3" receiver. And they ain't got him listed to what, round 5, round 6?
Yeah. Yeah.
What y'all feel about that?
Thanks, Eldred.
Take it off the air.
Thanks, Eldred.
Thanks, buddy.
Have a good one. Thanks for the call as always. James Pierce is an interesting prospect. He was like a top 5 pick at one point in this draft, right? Like he was projected to go super, super high.
Who?
James Pierce.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he had kind of a rough year, not a rough year, but just not the year that people were expecting at Tennessee this past year. And to me, when I see James Pierce, I think he's a very linear rusher. Like he doesn't have a lot of agility or change of direction to really challenge inside and outside. He's kind of just like a speed to power. I'm going to run into the tackle and like hope I kind of make it work type of guy. I think he's raw and I don't think he's got a great like mobility, right? You know, like ankle bend and hip fluidity and those types of things that usually lend itself to really high sack production at the next level. Like, could he be a pocket pusher, disruptor, you know, drop him into coverage? Hey, look, it's you. Drop him into coverage, like that sort of thing. Yeah, like I think that he could be that guy. But I didn't see a lot of bend and a lot of twitch to his movements, which would worry me a little bit with him. But like if he has like a draft day weekend fall and he's somehow finds his way to the second round, which I think is crazy, but maybe like I'm not saying like completely ruling him out as a day 2 guy for the Patriots, but I don't think he's in the conversation to be a top 10 pick anymore.
He's a guy that has one elite tool, but he doesn't have a lot of tools.
Yeah.
Like that one tool is excellent, but he doesn't do much beyond that. He's not a first-round pick in most drafts. He is kind of that Josh Uche sort of player I think you're talking about. It's part of the reason he fell was like he came into the year with a lot of expectation, and because he had such a strong 2023. He played well in 2024, but he didn't necessarily get better. He didn't show anything new.
Yeah.
And I think that's what has teams concerned. So if you're somebody that believes in just kind of the true speed rusher, yeah, he has some value, but he's not much more than that. And because he didn't develop, you know, teams have to ask themselves now, why didn't he develop? Is this all he's going to end up being?
Yeah, that's fair. And then the Tyquan Thornton 2.0 receiver that he mentioned.
Who was I couldn't hear him.
I think his last name is literally Thornton, right? Dante Thornton Jr.
Yeah.
I mean, he's like a 6'3" string bean, fast
Fast
yeah,
and.
Yeah,
right?
That's why he's going, why he's not projected higher on boards right now is because he's literally he's a track meet player. Like, that's the type of guy that he is. So great athlete, great combine. I wouldn't get too caught up in 40 times with players like that.
Yeah.
So
I'm so glad I thought of that. That's going to come in handy for years to come. I think.
That's always my problem. All right.
Well, you're going to have to you're going to have to be ready to answer the question when you want to hype up one of these guys.
So the president of Mason Graham's fan club, who is Floyd in Redford, Michigan.
That might be for all the free agency stuff, the only guy that truly came off the board.
So
Mason Graham.
So Floyd says that we can't rule out Mason Graham because I'm telling you, he's Mason Graham's biggest fan.
Well, that's something I would expect Mason Graham's biggest fan to say.
He's not ruling out Mason Graham because of Christian Barmore's status, in terms of his health. There's definitely a fair point there that they can't necessarily count on having an available Christian Barmore. But I already had concerns about Mason Graham holding up at 290, 295 as it is. And now you want to pair him with another guy who weighs 290 pounds. I just think that that's very, very light in the middle of your defense.
It's also, are you willing to make your big free agency signing and your top draft pick at the same position, which is not a premium position? That's a tough sell. That's a really tough sell.
Yep, that's another great point. It's basically redundant skill set, same position, same type of player. Like the ways that Milton Williams wins, disruptive hands, leverage, using his lower center of gravity to get underneath blockers, first step of quickness into gaps, instincts, motor. I just described Mason Graham.
Yeah.
So now you're gonna just have two Mason Grahams,
two Milton Williams. Well, hopefully two Milton Williams.
Which there's worse things to have, but it's kind of a luxury, not a necessity. So that's Mason Graham. It does make me feel like a little bit better that maybe that's off the board because I wasn't in love with it at the beginning.
I always feel bad the last 2 years, the guy I've kind of come at is the no player has been a Michigan guy, and people probably think I just hate Michigan. I need Michigan to come through with a guy that I can really get behind to offset that because it's nothing against Michigan.
All right, let's take these calls. Mark is in Connecticut. What's up, Mark?
Hey, guys. Always appreciate you guys taking my calls. Just had a quick one. If we strike out on Cooper Kupp, Jacoby Myers, what is the prediction there of what he would, what it would take to get him in a trade, round-wise? What do you guys think on that?
Yeah, Mark, thanks for the call. That's a tough one, I would say, to project because I don't think he's really available. So you have to make the offer to the Raiders that's enticing enough for them to actually move him back to the Patriots. So
they don't need a quarterback anymore.
Right. So I think that you would have to give them a third or fourth round pick, which seems really high. Just given not necessarily a knock on Jacoby Myers, but just given the way the wide receiver market has moved in trades, DK Metcalf only got a mid-second round pick back. So I just, in order to make it enticing enough for the Raiders to actually trade him, it's going to have to be something worth it.
Yeah.
And so now I think you're kind of overpaying for him.
The moving down from 4 to 6 and getting Jacoby in a third round pick, that made sense to me, but there's no incentive for the Raiders to do that anymore.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'm with you.
It's a tough one. I get why people want him back. He's a good player.
Yeah.
But I don't know that's
if it comes out that he's on the block and he can be had, for a reasonable price, that's different. But if you have to actually aggressively pursue him,
it's probably not going to be worth it.
Yeah. All right. Marvin is in Florida. What's up, Marvin?
Hey, fellas, how you guys doing?
Good.
My thing is, why don't we trade Duggar for maybe a third round pick and get Will Campbell pick 9 and then trade up to get Golden or another top wide receiver in the draft.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Marvin. I don't know what Kyle Duggar's value is really right now.
I don't think it's a third round pick.
I don't think it's a third round pick at all.
That would all be 9. I also don't think you're getting Will Campbell at 9, even as a guard. I don't think you're getting him at 9.
I think
it's a great thought.
Yeah, I think you're better off almost if you don't have Duggar in your long-term plans, I think you're better off him starting the season here and hoping that he starts well.
Yeah.
And then maybe trading him at the deadline for something. But you have to remember, they just paid him. So they just gave him a big contract. So now, the team is acquiring the contract as well as the player in a trade. And as we've seen across the board, when that's the case, you just don't get the value in the trade that you maybe think you would. I think Kyle Duggar is, unfortunately, kind of not worth anything of substantial value right now.
He's here for now, and that's why they need to get a free safety so they can play him in the box and let him do what he does best.
Yeah. All right. Last one here, then we'll wrap it up. This is from a concerned fan from Chelsea. And he says, I'm going insane because for all the discussion around not picking a non-left tackle at 4, no one is answering the following question. Answering the follow-up question of who's going to play left tackle. Before free agency, there was the Ronnie Stanley and Cam Robinson comp out, but now that's gone and there are no servable left tackles left. Well, Cam Robinson's not gone. In my mind, you have to gamble at Campbell at 4. If he's a bust and ends up as an elite guard, oh well. So, Cam Robinson's not gone, first of all.
Yeah.
I think what you have to weigh, and we talked about this earlier, because I think this is a fair point.
That is the question right now.
Right, and that's why I wanted to end it on it, because this is the philosophical question that we're going to be having.
Yeah.
Are you desperate to the point at left tackle where you're going to take Will Campbell, and if he's a bust and you have to move him inside to left guard, then so be it. And you're willing to take that risk at 4 overall. I personally would just say that I still don't think it's a terrible option to sign Cam Robinson to a short-term contract and draft one of those second wave guys like a Josh Simmons.
Let's say you can't get Robinson. Let's say Robinson's off, because that's obvious. Yeah, if you sign Cam Robinson, you draft somebody later. That's easy, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what we'd hope they do from the beginning.
Yeah.
Let's say Cam Robinson signs elsewhere, because that's really putting the pressure on. Because now, okay, you're not like Vidarian Lowe's in the competition, and maybe he doesn't end up being the guy, but you're talking about Vidarian Lowe and equivalent players.
Yeah, you're talking about Vidarian Lowe and Josh Connerly in a competition, or Vidarian Lowe and Arianti Ursary in a competition.
Or now I guess you have to talk about, I keep wanting to say Tristan Wirfs, Jedrick Wills. Or Tristan Wirfs would be great.
Yeah.
Jedrick Wills or one of those other tackles that's still available. At that point, are you thinking about Will Campbell? Because I think they will.
I think you are thinking about it in general, but you have to be convinced, in my mind, if you're drafting Will Campbell at 4, that he's going to play high-level tackle. I think you have to be 100% convinced that he's going to play tackle.
Okay, so, but forget what you think, right? If Cam Robinson is not available,
yeah,
what are you doing at left tackle next year? That is the question.
If I had to pick,
yes,
right now I would try to position myself to draft one of those second wave tackles and put him in a competition with Vidarian Lowe.
Okay,
or sign Cam Robinson and put him in.
Well, this is Cam Robinson's off the board, right?
He's off the board.
Cam Robinson's off the board.
Then,
what are you doing at left tackle?
I would draft Josh Connerly or Arianti Ursary and put him in a competition with.
How high would you draft him?
20s.
Okay, so you're moving up from
if
38.
I have to. Yeah.
Well, I'm saying you can't just wait at 38 to see which one falls and then neither fall, and now what are you doing, right?
Yeah, if I have to maneuver, I maneuver.
Let me see Will Campbell's pro day numbers.
Why is that going to change anything? He worked out of the combine.
Yeah, and the combine numbers were way off from the Senior Bowl numbers
in terms of
for
his
everybody
arm
else. Arm length, yeah.
All right, fair enough.
I'm not closing, and I don't think they're going to close the door on Will Campbell being the answer to that question. I really don't.
No, I don't think there's
whether they should or not is another conversation. He very well may be a guard. I think he is. But it doesn't matter what me and you would do because we're not up there or over there, wherever the office is, right? It's what they would do. I have this gut feeling that door is not totally shut yet.
All right. That's going to do it for this week's Catch-22. A lot to talk about today.
That was
I like
fun
that.
one.
That was a good show.
And then we're going to get more fun from here.
We'll be back next week. I think we'll probably do an even harder reset of the draft board and all the Patriots options and at the top of the draft and throughout the draft next week. So we'll be here and we'll break that down for you as well. And there might be some more Patriots news, I'm sure, signings and all that good stuff as well. So until then, signing off for Alex Barth, I'm Evan Lazar. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Thank you for downloading this podcast. Subscribe on Apple, Google Play, and everywhere else you listen.
Like the show? Please rate and review us. Listener comments and ratings help keep us high in the podcast rankings so new listeners can find us. Be sure to check patriots.com for more news and more podcasts.